Good afternoon, Borada. Welcome to stage 2 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. We're in Wrexham. It's the Wrexham stage, starting and finishing in the Welsh city. Up in the north, 140.1 kilometres of racing with just over 1,300 metres of elevation. We had a fantastic stage that started the 2024 edition of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women yesterday, starting in Welshpool, ending in Llandudno. It was a real nail-biter finish. Excellent racing across the heart of Wales, across the countryside. A well-deserved winner, and it was an excellent start.
After about 60 kilometres. Heidi Franz led the riders over the top, with Margot van Pachtebecker in second and Lizzie Dignan third. Lucy Harris of Pro Noctis 200, Colleen Hargreaves Contracting, broke away from the peloton to take the race lead and was later awarded for her efforts with the Compatibility Award. She was caught on the second Queen of the Mountains climb at Tini Lydiard. Lizzie Dignan led a select group over the top and was closely followed by Great Britain teammate Anna Henderson and world champion Lotte Kopecky in third. A breakaway group of 9 riders then built up a significant advantage, and with 20 kilometres to go they hit the sprint at Dol Garreg. Leticia Paternoster was first across the line and took the 3 bonus seconds on offer. Lotte Kopecky picked up 2 and Pfeiffer Georgie got 1. The leading group had an advantage of over 3 minutes as they headed towards the finish line in Llandudno.
Paternoster is trying to come to the finish line to challenge Kopecky, but is it going to be all but too late? But is it a throw for the line? Kopecky right on the line. It's a rainbow finish here in Llandudno.
So after stage 1, Lotte Kopecky has a 3-second lead over Leticia Paternoster, with Pfeiffer Georgie in third at 7 seconds. Lizzie Dignan heads a group of riders 12 seconds off the lead.
Well, it was a real nail-biter finish, that photo finish separating Lotte Kopecky and Leticia Paternoster. It was so close. But in the end, it was Lotte Kopecky who took her 40th professional victory, denying Leticia Paternoster and Liv Alula-Jayco. Let's have a little look at what the riders have to take on stage 2.
The race's second stage starts and finishes in Wrexham. The peloton follows a 140-kilometre clockwise loop, hitting the first Queen of the Mountains climb at Ayton Hill, quickly followed by the intermediate sprint at Johnstown, and the race will then continue along a stretch of the Llangollen Canal. Big crowds will be expected on the iconic Horseshoe Pass for the second Queen of the Mountains climb, with around 30 kilometres to go. The descent should set up a fast run into Wrexham for the stage finish. Wrexham is the largest town in North Wales. It's a modern, bustling location surrounded by lovely countryside and delightful villages. The city was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution from the 18th century. A few miles south is the famous Ponte Aqueduct, built by Thomas Telford and completed in 1805. Crowned a World Heritage Site in 2009, it's still taking passengers on the ride of their lives.
Well, a terrific starting location here up in the north of Wales in Wrexham. Officially became the 7th city in Wales alongside Cardiff, Swansea, Newport, Bangor, St David's and St Asaph in September 2022. But the riders are all ready. They're rolling out this morning at 11:15 local time for a 4.2 kilometre neutralised section before the stage gets underway. And while they were greeted by some terrific fans, plenty of school children had, fortunate for them, had the morning off to come and celebrate the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. And they went through kilometre 0, and Danny Rowe, it was quite a calm start in comparison to what we saw yesterday. We saw a few moves from some of our invited teams, including Hess Pro Cycling, Life Plus Wahoo, and SD Works were always covering those moves.
They were indeed. Of course, they have race leader in Lotta Kopecky after that nail-biting finale yesterday and photo finish with Italian Letizia Paternoster. But one today could be for the break. If you look at the parkour, it's very back-ended. We have 2 Queen of the Mountains points and 1 intermediate sprint on offer. This was a move earlier by Franzi Koch from the team of DSM Firmenich post NL.
Yeah, they've been really animated, haven't they, DSM, Firmenich, Post-NL. They really wanted to try something. We had Raquel Barbieri, who was very animated, Franziska Koch, Danique Hankeveld was always up towards the front too, and that really put a lot of pressure on the shoulders of perhaps those who thought they might have had an easier start, a more gentle start to today's stage, with it being very back-ended.
Yeah, I think a lot of the teams would have looked to get themselves into a breakaway today after the big significant time gap that we had from those 9 riders making it to the finish, nearly 4 minutes ahead of the rest. It does become a lot more open on today's stage, and teams searching to try and claw back some time on that general classification and get themselves up the road. But we did have a few solo riders going out front. This is a rider from Volker Vessels again earlier today. A few riders on the tails in pursuit of that rider.
Well, that all came back together. Then it was Franziska Koch, once again, the German rider, the 23-year-old who found her moment. She got a little gap. There was a moment in the peloton where it was very calm. They didn't really see the danger of one solo rider going clear. And well, the German from Mettmann, she started to open up a lead. And in the end, the time gap only continued to grow.
It did indeed, and there was still over 100 kilometres to go. This was very questionable tactics, you have to say, from the teammate of Franzi Koch, who was still out leading solo at this point in time, that she is trying to chase back or bridge the gap over to her teammate, when the body language of Franzi Koch was that she was still in hot pursuit out front.
She was looking strong. We saw moves from Abby Smith, Danique Hankeveld, trying to almost force a new breakaway to go away. And meanwhile, Franziska Koch was gaining almost 50 seconds, 1 minute, minute and a half of an advantage. Now we join the race live. Let's have a look. Well, the time gap went over 2.5 minutes to our lone leader, Franziska Koch, and still the attacks from her teammates continue to come away. Well, she's still solo, but Danny trying to pick out, trying to understand the tactics here of Team DSM Firmenich Post-NL. Why would they, did they feel that perhaps it was too early for her to go to solo? I mean, there's no Queen of the Mountains coming up in procession.
Yeah, to be honest, it's really hard for me to answer that question because I don't have an answer. In this scenario, you would never do such a thing. There wouldn't be the tactic to try and bridge across to your teammate, who is a super strong domestique. Generally, her last win was back in 2019 in the Simac Ladies Tour. That's her only professional win. However, she's such a strong individual and she's got a great chance. And look at this time gap now, over 3 minutes and 40 seconds on the peloton. So yeah, to me, I have no idea what they were doing in that scenario, trying to close the gap, maybe bridge across as a solo rider. But of course, the peloton aren't going to let you do that either. And what it does do then is open up the opportunity for counter-attacks.
Well, let's set the scene, because this is a UCI Women's World Tour race. They all have race radios. They all have communication methods to be able to speak to each other, speak to the team cars, speak to the DS and vice versa. So it can't be a communication problem, surely.
No, and we did question that, didn't we? Just because of how bizarre it was, that we never see this happening in professional bike racing, you know, teammates chasing down teammates, and are their communication devices working? But we saw shots of them talking into the radio, and that is part and parcel of being a professional bike rider. Even if the cars are so far back that you lose signal to your team DS, you can still communicate between yourselves.
64 kilometres to go. We've just clicked over 2 hours of racing. Welcome to stage 2 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. My name's Hannah Walker. Alongside me is Danny Rowe, a rider who's finished on the podium in the general classification in this race back in 2018, and it came down to the most slender of differences between those podium placings and the winner. On the front, it's SD Works Pro Time, who of course have the early rider, the leader of this race, Lotte Kopecky, who's got the green jersey on her shoulders, the world champion. Of course, that team making sure that they can keep this gap under control, and still, Lotte Kopecky is still the leader on the road, despite Franziska Koch having that more than 3-minute advantage.
Yeah, she is, and now we've seen SD Works Pro Time coming to the front. It is generally down to the team that in that leader's jersey to take control of that chase behind. So it's only been up until now that they've really made a concerted effort to come to the front as a team, as a unit, and we've got that cohesion between the team now, and they are pulling, setting a really strong tempo on the front to try and control that break into our first Queen of the Mountain of the day. So that's our next point in hand. It's Eaton Hill. It's a third categorised climb. It's only 1.4 kilometres at 3%, but we do have that intermediate sprint point that comes very soon after at 46.6 kilometres to go, where if Franzi Koch is still up the road, there will still be 2 and 1 seconds available.
This stage is very different to what we saw yesterday in terms of the parkour. We see that the elevation gain is a lot less than yesterday. A lot of the climbing comes towards the back end of the stage with Eaton Hill and then Horseshoe Pass, which is a Category 1 climb. Very, very different, whereas yesterday it was constantly undulating, constantly up and down, very little time for respite, and plenty of these riders will be carrying some fatigue after yesterday's race. Just to bring you some information, that we've had 2 riders who have sadly had to abandon the stage. That is Hayley Simmons of Dolcini O'Shea, the 35-year-old, and Babette van der Wolf of Life Plus Wahoo, who has sadly been unable to finish the stage. And we also bring some more sad news from that team, Life Plus Wahoo, because overnight, when they've sadly had all 14 of their Ribble SLR bikes stolen from their van at the team's hotel. So it's been a very, very stressful early morning, early hours, and into today's stage for that squad. And all the riders, the management, trying to be able to find spare bikes from teams, and plenty of teams have been so generous in lending their spare bikes to make sure that those riders could get on the start line today.
Yeah, it was really sad news, wasn't it, that we all found out this morning on social media that they'd had their bikes stolen. It's already stressful at the start of a stage, trying to get ready for a stage with the nerves that are mounting without having to worry about finding bikes for the riders to race on. Thankfully, it was minutes where every single team in the peloton offered up their spare bikes so these riders could start, which I just thought was amazing. The community that we have within the peloton is just fantastic, that they could start today. Of course, it's going to be very different. They're on bikes that they are not used to riding, different brands, different setups, and every single rider has, I guess, different sensitivities in terms of those micro adjustments and how, you know, that equipment is going to affect them on the bike. But again, the fact that they can start today just shows the camaraderie, the community between the teams. So chapeau for them for stepping up. And we've heard there's 1 spare bike on the team car of Life Plus Wahoo, and that is an SD Works bike. So yeah, thank you to all of the teams that made it possible for that team to start today.
It just shows the teams are so united as well. Whilst they're rivals here, they're also willing to help each other, and such great gestures that the other teams and the rival teams have done. We already saw earlier on that Karen Surdevisk is on a bike from Liv Jayco Alula, so she's riding a Liv bike. And so, as you say, Danny, it's very, very different trying to become accustomed to new equipment, perhaps a new group set, different pedals. There's so many different things and factors to think of, but ultimately, and the most important thing for them, is they're able to continue this race. And Heidi Franz, who's right up there in the Queen of the Mountains competition, she sits 2nd overall currently behind Lizzie Deignan, our leader. So there's even more fire for them to try and go for that jersey now with France.
Yeah, of course, and that's what they've got to channel their energy into, isn't it? How they can still get the best out of this race and use that frustration of obviously those bikes being stolen to good use. But you're right, Heidi Franz, only 4 points away from Lizzie Deignan, who's leading in that competition, and there's 14 points on offer today. So with that Category 1 climb, we have 10 points on offer, and then that Category 3 climb that the riders are soon going to be approaching, there will be 4 at the top of that one.
Other riders who didn't start today's stage include Connie Hayes, sadly, who was very animated yesterday, the 23-year-old from Dolcini O'Shea. We also had Zoe Langham from Pro Noctis 200 Degrees Coffee Hargreaves Contracting, who didn't start, along with the Czechia rider Nikola Noskova of Cofidis women's team, who didn't start stage 2. So we now have 82 riders remaining in the race. The weather conditions quite different to yesterday. The bar opened after 20 kilometres of racing. After 30 kilometres of racing, it'll close with 20 kilometres to go. Franziska Koch on this solo escape out front, just keeping herself topped up with fuel, with food, with gels, with bottles. We've already seen that the team car has been allowed into the gap behind the breakaway. And of course, each team only has one car in the convoy here, so they're having to balance looking after their solo rider out in the breakaway, but also looking after the 5 other riders who are in the peloton.
Yeah, it's a really hard dynamic. Generally, we have 2 team cars in a race, but here there is only one. So they've chosen to follow the solo breakaway rider in Franziska Koch. In case she does have a problem, they will be able to assist her. But like you say, she was taking on that fuel. She had a nice homemade rice cake, it looked like there, which a lot of the Swanniers are accustomed to making. They bring their rice cookers over to the races and then fill them with whatever the riders' preferences are. And look at that again, the school children are out in force. And this is what we love about racing in the UK, and it's something that the riders always talk about when chatting about what it's like to ride here in the UK, in Wales, in England, when they race in the week. Generally, if they pass a school, the organisers would have informed the school, and they can come out and cheer these riders on as they go past.
Into Overton, into a little pinch point, and it is something that is always for this race, starting earlier too, to make sure that they can pass by when the children are still in school. Traditionally, maybe on the continent, we might have stages start at perhaps 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but it always seems the case, especially during the week. We have earlier starts around 11 in the morning, half 11 in the morning, so that they can coincide with the primary schools or high schools here.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, we are trying to inspire the next generation here, and what a way to do that, to be able to see these riders rip past your school where you come kind of Monday to Friday and learn. Some of these children maybe hadn't even seen a professional bike race on TV. They didn't even know it existed. We heard that from Lizzie Deignan in the post-race interview yesterday about how important it is to get in front of the fans and the young children and try and show them what is possible. And if you can't see, you can't believe. And that's a big focus for this race now for British cycling, the race director Rod Ellingworth, in trying to inspire that next generation to take up cycling, and maybe not even to pin a number on your back, but just to enjoy the sport in its entirety. And that is what is so special about our sport.
To watch it, to see it, to be entertained by the sport. Like you say, not necessarily having to race the sport yourself or race at the highest level, just to enjoy life on 2 wheels. Perhaps it's just going down to the shops. Who knows? Heading through Overton, that was granted a weekly market and an annual fair in 1279 by the English King Edward I. It became a borough by royal charter in 1292, and at which time there were only 56 taxpayers who lived there. Pretty sure there's a few more now.
I'm enjoying all your facts, Hannah. I enjoyed them yesterday. You've got them coming out again today.
To give you a rundown in the general classification, it's Lotte Kopecky who leads the overall general classification. She's got that green jersey. You can just see her sitting on the wheel of her breakaway companion yesterday and teammate Christine Majerus in that Luxembourgish strip with the red, white and pale blue colours on the shoulders. You've got Barbara Grishy in the pink who's on the front, but in the general classification it's Lotte Kopecky who leads 3 seconds ahead of Letizia Paternoster, with Pfeiffer Georgie, the British champion, at 7 seconds. Dignan, Janssen, Henderson, Gielman, Majerus and Ruby Roseman Gannon are all at 12 seconds. It was Lucy Lee who is at 4 minutes and 1 second, but the peloton led by Lorena Wiebes are at 4 minutes and 2 seconds in that general classification. Already on stage 1, perhaps we wouldn't have expected such large gaps already. It was an attritional day. There was a lot of fatigue in the peloton, a lot of fatigue in the legs. It's a lot to close over the next few stages, and it's going to have to take a great strategy from teams to try and close such a deficit.
Yeah, it's huge. And personally, I don't think it will be closed. And kind of echoing what Lizzie Dignan said as well, she believed that the GC was done even after stage 1. The riders won't become complacent, of course. And if there are breakaways and that composition, riders are kind of within a couple of minutes of GC. If we look into stage 3 and stage 4, the riders will make sure that is very closely marked indeed. But if we look at the remainder of these stages tomorrow, looks like it's a nailed on sprint stage, so almost impossible to be able to close that sort of gap. And then a tougher stage on stage 4 when we come into Manchester and we descend into Lee. This is the start of the first QOM of the day. So this is Eaton Hill, 1.4 kilometres at 3%. So Francie Koch just over 3 minutes of the peloton here, so naturally that pace in the peloton is going to increase as we get closer to this climb. So it will be really interesting to see the gap that the DSM Firmenich post NL rider has got at the top of this first QM.
4, 3, 2 and 1 points available for the first 4 riders to crest the top of Eaton Hill on this category 3 climb. Of course, the jersey is on the shoulders of Lizzie Dignan, so you'll see her in the blue jersey. And perhaps for Team DSM Firmenich post NL, we were questioning their tactics earlier on about why would they be chasing down a lone leader, their teammate, and lots of counter-attacks behind. Perhaps they were wanting to try and go for points here in this Queen of the Mountains competition, but perhaps also to try and force a smaller group to bridge across to this.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you're not out solo, especially with so many kilometres to go. It was around 100 kilometres to go where we saw that move being made by Francie Koch, and now she has a significant time gap. But again, it's generally not down to teammates. Of course, you can jump on moves by other teams to try and force that and to give Francie Koch some kind of firepower and help along the way, because she is on her own. But now she's found herself solo. It's all about that full commitment here. It's an all or nothing move. She'll be in that kind of time trialing mode and trying to home in on her power and have a measured effort over the remainder of this stage. And behind, they can just relax. They don't have to touch the wind in front. For Pfeiffer Georgie, who was part of this leading 9 yesterday, she was 3rd on the stage, so 3rd overall in that general classification. This has to be a huge target for the British champion on home roads as well. So they're in a great position here.
We always talk about how can a team or riders beat the squad of Team SD Works Pro Time, and I guess for Team DSM Firmenich Post NL, they threw everything into that early part of the stage to try something to mix it up, to perhaps send a smaller group across to Franziska Koch, and in doing so, try and make it harder for other teams, other riders behind, in the hope that something would stick or something would go away. In the end, you can see they've accepted the situation. They're riding off the back of other teams, other riders, and allowing them to do the work now. You can just see on the right-hand side in that royal blue, orange, and the white jersey, they're sitting at the back of the GB national team.
They are indeed, and you're right, Hannah. You know, attacking is the best form of defence. I think when you're talking about how to beat SD Works, if you purely ride to their tactics, generally you're not going to come out on top. And that's what we've seen from the likes of Little Trek specifically this year, you would say, with some great battles in the Spring Classics with Elisa Longo Borghini, just to name one rider. And I think the other teams have cottoned on to that.
Well, Franziska Koch will be coming towards the top of this first Queen of the Mountain of the day, the Category 3. They've taken around 30 seconds away from our solo leader at the moment. And now, of course, the Great Britain national team are setting themselves up because they want to try and allow Lizzie Deignan to take some more points just to make sure that she can increase her advantage over Heidi Franz and Van Pachenbaker.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see, and I'm sure she will, for Lizzie Deignan, whether she goes for these points, because she said yesterday it absolutely was not a plan of the team, but on both Queen of the Mountain, she found herself in a perfect position to go for the points.
But I guess it shows her instinctive racing style.
Exactly. You have to be there at those moments, whether you're going for the Queen of the Mountains competition or not. And she obviously found herself there. And like you said, she is one of those individuals that, of course, she's going to go for it if she can. She's clearly got good legs as well. And she is the race leader here for the national team. We've seen her in more of a domestique role over the last couple of years after coming back from having her second child. Her last win being Paris-Roubaix back in 2021. And it'll be really interesting to see what Lizzie Deignan can do here. She's clearly on good form, and it's the Olympic year, so of course for the British Federation there'll be a criteria set as to how you become selected for the Paris Olympic Games. And she said in media in the lead up to this race that they haven't had that selection made yet, so she hopes that she will be selected and that she's done enough. But I think, to me, looking at the way she's riding here, she'll definitely get that call up.
The first time since 2016 we've seen the Great Britain national team amongst this UCI Women's World Tour stage race here in the Women's Tour. 500 metres to go for the peloton currently to the top of this Queen of the Mountain. Start to see several teams amassing their lead outs here. On the left-hand side, you can see Tennille Campbell of Liverlula Jayco, who, of course, they'll be wanting to try and protect Letizia Paternoster today, who's right up there in the general classification. We've got Christine Majerus, who is there, as well as Volker Wessels.
Yeah, it's always really important to be well positioned, even if you're not going for those points, because we do always see a lot of action on the climbs, and also after the climbs it can be a really dangerous part in the race where we see riders countering attacking after those points have been swallowed up. We also have that intermediate sprint point that comes only 4 kilometers between the top of the Queen of the Mountains and that sprint point in hand. So here we go.
Well, it's Heidi Franz who's trying to take the 3 points that are remaining after Franziska Koch took the 4. Heidi Franz takes the 3. Lizzie Deignan settles for the 2. That puts Lizzie Deignan on 16 points. Heidi Franz is now on 13 points. I have a feeling we're going to have a very, very close competition over the next 2.5 stages that remain here in the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. And it's not deterring Heidi Franz, who, of course, the team of Life Plus Wahoo, all of their Ribble SLRs stolen from their team van last evening, and for her, she's racing on a Liverlula Jayco bike here.
Yeah, chapeau to her and the team for taking maximal points over that first Queen of the Mountains, and that will just settle the nerves slightly. She would have come into this race with that being a really huge goal for her, securing points yesterday and lying second in that competition. So to have that news in the morning and then have the stress of trying to find the bikes and still being able to perform like that is really, really impressive. So that'll be a big kind of sigh of relief, pressure off. They'll have that chapeau, well done in the radio, and just composure for the second climb, Horseshoe Pass.
The results of Eton Hill, Franziska Koch takes the 4 points ahead of Heidi Franz, who takes the 3 points. Lizzie Deignan taking the 2 points available, and Christine Majerus taking the 1 remaining point available. So that puts Christine Majerus on 8 points in that classification now. It's quite a cruel climb because you don't descend into the intermediate sprint, as we see a problem here for two riders. One from Life Plus Wahoo, the other is Dixine Miamiot. Two riders who have come down, and this is not good news. This is Karen Söderqvist, the Swedish rider.
Good to see both riders back up on their feet and the medical team with them straight away. We'll just see a replay of what happened.
Just on the right-hand side, it seems a really nasty crash there. Touch of wheels between those two riders. As you say, Danny Rowe, it's great to see both of the riders are back up on their feet, but it's never nice to see, and particularly at that point in the race, especially when you're carrying so much speed there.
Yeah, exactly, and it just shows again the importance of positioning. This will be a bit of a stressful part of the race as well. You can see the pace is really on here. Elena Cecchini coming to the front for SD Works Pro Time, so they want to get back in control of this time gap with our solo leader out front. Eleanor Barker did a fantastic job there in that lead out for Lizzie Deignan. She's got such a beautiful style on the bike, hasn't she? So fluid in her pedaling style, and she's another rider that will perhaps ride in two disciplines at the Olympic Games, in both the track and the road. So it'll be interesting to see the selection that is made for the British team. But good to see Dixeline Miamont now from the San Michel Mavic Ober 93 team. She's got a bit of a chase on her hands. Not the best time to crash and come down with so much pace now in the peloton.
For her, you can just see looking a little bit uncomfortable, trying to use some of the cars here to try and get her way back in. It won't be long until Franziska Koch gets to the intermediate sprint here. Of course, 4 points on offer for the first rider, 2 for the second rider, and 1 point for the third rider to cross the line there. That, crucially, there's bonus seconds available, 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds. And now in terms of the general classification as we came into the stage, Franziska Koch was no real threat. She was at 4 minutes and 2 seconds. She's not any danger to Lotte Kopecky, but behind, we might expect to see that closely fought for.
Yeah, I think we will. From those 9 riders that led the race yesterday, you can see that point just up ahead with those red banners either side of the road. We saw her go through 500 metres to go. It's a really tough point, though, because it's actually on a bit of a climb. You can see the incline and how tough this is. So timing is going to be crucial for those riders behind Hannah. Like you said, I think that will be hotly contested for those 2 and 1 seconds that will still be on offer here.
Franziska Koch gets the encouragement from the roadside. She can keep right within her rhythm. She goes through the intermediate sprint. She takes the 4 points. She takes the 3 bonus seconds. For her, she doesn't have that jostling for position to try and take the points like they will have behind. And it's still SD Works Pro Time in the purple jerseys, led by Chantal van den Broek-Black, the former road race world champion. Great to see one of the invited teams in the green and black jerseys, Hess Pro Cycling, get themselves involved and amassed there. All 5 of their riders, 5 of their 6 riders, all at 4 minutes and 2 seconds. So they're right within the majority of the riders. There is Lotte Kopecky in that Lloyds Bank green jersey, speaking into the radio. She can feel and sense that riders are trying to come in the inside, and take a look at that. They've jumped the surprise here. It's Raquel Barbieri. She's got Aline Janssen of Volker Vessels in the best young rider jersey in the white. There's Georgia Baker with Letizia Paternoster on the wheel, and what we saw yesterday was Paternoster was able to outsprint Lotte Kopecky. Kopecky's trying to come down the inside. Charlotte Kool is there for Team DSM Firmenich in the white and blue jersey with the orange down the centre, and she tries to go for the bonus seconds. Wiebes tries to get herself involved as well, but it looks as though this is going to be a runaway for Charlotte Kool.
Interestingly for Charlotte Kool here, what she'd be doing, I believe, is taking seconds away for Pfeiffer Georgie. Pfeiffer Georgie is going for that general classification, and you would question again why Kool would be going for those seconds when she was over 4 minutes down yesterday, but that would be my guess here. She's taken those 2 seconds away, and it looked like Lotte Kopecky took that 1 second.
It was still closely fought for. Lorena Wiebes was right in the frame too, to ultimately try and do the same as Charlotte Kool for Pfeiffer Georgie there. But again, Lotte Kopecky got herself boxed in a little bit. And she spoke yesterday about how she made quite a few mistakes in that sprint into the finish in Llandudno. But now after this intermediate sprint, we've got a select group going away. Lizzie Deignan in the blue jersey. We've got Lorena Wiebes, the former European champion, in the pinky purple jersey of SD Worx Pro Time. She's got a teammate, Lotte Kopecky, there in the green. In the white jersey, impressively once again, the 22-year-old Aline Janssen from Volker Vessels. Letizia Paternoster is there, as is Charlotte Kool of Team DSM Firmenich.
This is what you've always got to be so attentive for after these points, where everyone is on their knees. Even if they're not going for the points in hand, naturally the pace increases. There's a huge battle in those lead outs for the riders going for the points. That is generally the best place to attack. I was always told it as a bike rider, the best place was when you were hurting the most, that's when to attack, because the chances are everyone's going to be hurting at the same time. And look at this, Lizzie Deignan using that experience and that opportunity after that intermediate sprint point to put the hammer down, and look at the gap that's been formed now.
It's quite akin to a points race on the track, isn't it? Attack after a points lap. Well, Lizzie Deignan has made it into the breakaway, quite like she did yesterday. She's in the chase. We spoke to her before the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. Let's hear what she had to say.
Lizzie, how excited are you to have the Women's Tour of Britain back on the calendar?
I'm really, really happy about it, yeah. I mean, I've won this race twice in my career, and it sits really at the top of my palmares. As I haven't won many stage races, so to have won 2 in the UK and to have it back is a great opportunity for me.
And for the riders, we're all happy and delighted it's back. It's great for the crowds as well, for the home audience to be able to watch riders out on the road.
Yeah, I think it's really important to inspire the next generation of riders. I think we're in a really strong place now. There's lots of strong women coming through, but obviously you've got to think of the next generation, and to be able to inspire people on the road in front of them racing is what it's all about.
How much have you looked at the road book?
Yeah. I've had a good look. Yeah, it looks pretty tough the first few days. Obviously it'll end in a sprint probably, but it really depends on the dynamic of the peloton, what people want to do, how hard it'll be.
As you say, having won this race previously, what are your goals for the week?
I just want to get a result, actually. Yeah, it'd be nice to come away with a result. I don't know what's expected of me yet. We haven't had the team meeting. Obviously I'm here with Great Britain, so it's a little bit less straightforward than it is with my trade team, but yeah, we'll see.
Well, the plan looks as though Lizzie Deignan, being one of the protected riders within that Great Britain national team, she's got the blue jersey as the leader of the Queen of the Mountains competition on her shoulders. She's right up there in the general classification. Danny Rowe, Team DSM Firmenich PostNL are in quite a difficult position here, because they've got one rider who is out front as we head through Ruabon. They've got Charlotte Kool in the chasing group, but crucially, their highest placed rider in the general classification, Pfeiffer Georgie, has missed this move. What do they do now? Should they continue to work? Should they try and send Pfeiffer Georgie across? Should they send Franziska Koch back?
Yeah, it's a really hard dynamic to be in, but ultimately they need Pfeiffer Georgie in that move. I think that's the biggest goal for them, whether it's trying to bridge across to that move in hand. Charlotte Kool definitely shouldn't be rolling through and pushing that pace. I think that's the key goal here. To have a rider present is always an advantageous move, but again, she won't be working in this move. You can see behind as well, San Michel, Mavic, Ober 93 have also missed it. They had Victor Gilman in the move yesterday, so they'll be really key to shut this one down, and it looks like it has been shut down.
It's been shut down by one of the teams who missed the move yesterday. They'll be looking to try and put that right. That's Human Powered Health, one of the 4 UCI Women's World Tour teams here in this race. Alongside them are Team DSM Firmenich PostNL, SD Worx Pro Time, and Liv Jaco Alula. But look at the time gap. It's tumbling down to Franziska Koch. She came into the base of the first Queen of the Mountain of the day with 3 minutes and 40 seconds. She's got just a little over 1 minute of an advantage. And it just shows, just from the pressure that's being applied, the pace at the front. Of course, the riders wanting to go for the Queen of the Mountains points, into that intermediate sprint, and off the back of that, that breakaway going away and the chasing group going away, just how much damage it can do to a solo leader.
Yeah, and that's why the peloton weren't worried, weren't stressed out when she did go away, because generally a solo rider is very controllable, especially when you have such a back-ended race like we've got today, with all of these prizes and intermediate seconds on offer, and Horseshoe Pass, of course. We know the speed difference can be so significant between a solo rider out front and that workload of a peloton behind, being able to, you know, swap off the front and share the motivation. So it's a great day out for Francie Cock, but ultimately she will be caught, and I believe that will be on Horseshoe Pass. So we're going to meander now along the River Dee before that second Queen of the Mountain starts. It's a straight run in on an A road, so it's not narrow or technical, but it comes in almost two parts. We've got the main section of the climb. It's very open and exposed at the top, so the wind could definitely play a factor. And then we've got around 3 kilometres of descent, and then it kicks back up for 600 metres at 6%. So that could also be used as a little launch pad into the finish. And with only 23 kilometres to go then from that final little launch pad, it could be a really good opportunity to try and go solo to the line.
And even though we've finished all of the official climbing of the day, in terms of those Queen of the Mountains, even after the point you talk about, Danny, even with 15 kilometres to go, you still continue to climb. You've got that sharp descent, and then it climbs again, and before you descend your way back into Wrexham.
It does. So there's around 6.5 kilometre section of undulating roads, like you said, with about 21 kilometres to go, all the way until 15 kilometres to go. And that's when we do start that descent, that real fast run into Wrexham. There's small narrow roads as well, so again it's very conducive to a small breakaway or a solo rider. And then we've got those bigger roads then running into the finish with around 5 kilometres to go.
Just over 2.5 hours of racing complete, 40 kilometres to go. We'll get to that Horseshoe Pass with 30.7 kilometres remaining, so they've got 10 kilometres until they'll get to that point. And already everyone's got themselves back under control after perhaps a little bit of disarray after that intermediate sprint. And it's great to see some of our invited teams not being afraid to take things on at the head of the peloton here. We've got the Irish Continental team, Torelli, in that light blue jersey with the purple fade. We've got Hess Pro Cycling in the green and black jersey, who of course have the rider Grace Lister, who's relatively local again to today's stage, who had given us some wonderful insights for yesterday, but they're not afraid to take it on.
It's a huge opportunity for the British teams. There will be more pressure on their backs, but they're not used to riding in World Tour races, so why not give it a go? You know, we talked about it yesterday in featuring in the race, getting your team, getting your sponsors out there, and we saw some fantastic aggressive racing, especially by the likes of Lucy Harris from Pro Noctis, 200 Degrees Coffee, Hargreaves Contracting, and also Lucy Lee, whose birthday it was yesterday, and she wasn't afraid to give it a go. She held off that rampaging peloton behind to take her first top 10 World Tour result. So we absolutely love to see it.
It's wonderful to see, and it shows as well the importance of our wildcard teams, that they are able to animate the race. They are well deserving of a place in a UCI Women's World Tour stage race, and brilliant as well for the home teams, the likes of Das Hutchinson, Brother UK, who are competing here with Lucy Lee, for example. Of course, they passed one of their title sponsor locations, Brother Industries UK, the Recycling Technology Centre in Rue Arbonne, where we've just passed through. Thousands and thousands of printer cartridges are recycled and remanufactured there each year. It's also that link between title sponsors and the partnerships between teams.
It is indeed, and it's so important for them as well. And it's definitely, with the media and coverage and growth of women's cycling that we've got now, and I truly believe that women's cycling's never been in a better place, that motivation to get yourself out front, the rewards are so much more magnified now. So there's so much motivation to ride aggressively and get yourself up and out on telly and get us talking about you. And that's exactly what those riders have done here in this race. So chapeau to them. And one of my favourite memories in this race in the past, and I know we mentioned it yesterday, was when Cassia Nuviadoma went solo on stage 1 back in 2017, I believe it was. And it only takes one big performance, potentially from an unknown rider, unknown quantities, to stand out and be talked about over the race radio to the director sportives behind. You can use these sort of opportunities as a real shop window and show us what you've got to give.
Terrific to see. Absolutely terrific to see. The peloton passed by, the Aussie Rooster just on the right-hand side. At the back, it's Madeline Leach, the 21-year-old British rider. Thinking about the rest of this stage, the gap at 28 seconds, give or take, as we see some support at the roadside. For our Swiss riders, Linda Zanatti will be happy with that flag when she passes by, whether it's a family member or not. If it is, fantastic they've made the journey over to the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain women. If not, I'm sure she'll be absolutely delighted to see her nation's flag at the roadside. Thinking about how teams who have got a big deficit to close in that general classification, we've got the Horseshoe Pass today, which is 4.2 kilometers long. The first kilometer of that climb itself is incredibly steep. How and where can you close such a deficit in a general classification? Was that a big mistake from many teams yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was, but ultimately it's easier said than done to be in a move like that. And there was a few people commenting on whether it was a breakaway, whether it was just merely the front group, because it kind of got itself away on that second Queen of the Mountains, didn't it? And it was a strong composition of riders. It was a mistake ultimately, though, especially, I guess, from our only World Tour team that missed out in Human Powered Health. They only have 5 riders here. They didn't start with Henrietta Christie, who arguably probably would have been their GC hope for after having a really good start to the season. So that was a big blow for them. But Horseshoe Pass is a great opportunity to be able to close some of that gap. You have to look at the hardest parts of this race and what we have left. Tomorrow it's going to be really tricky. It's a predominantly flat stage and 1 deem for the sprinters, a harder stage on stage 4, but I think today is a big chance to do that. It has to be ridden, and it has to be ridden hard from the bottom to the top. Like you said, Hannah, there's a very steep section at the bottom, but also at the top as well. So the steep sections generally used as kind of real attacking points, especially for our climbers within the race. So again, going back to Human Powered Health, we've got Krista Dobell-Hickok, the American rider, who's a brilliant climber. So if I was the director sportif in Giorgia Bronzini, the former Italian professional bike rider, I'd be saying to her, get yourself to the front at the bottom of that climb and give it absolutely everything that you've got. See who you've got around you at the top, and then we'll reassess the situation as to what we do then. But yeah, that's what the other teams have got to do. Saint-Michel Mavic Ober 93, yes, they had Victor Gilman, but they've also got Marion Burnell, who is, again, a sensation of this season. She's recently won the Alps Classic, such a strong climber. So I think we'll see a huge battle of the climbers on this climb.
But she's shown she's in good form. It's only, a little over a week ago that she'd won that race. She's 19 years of age. She's showing so much potential. And you can see the team of Saint-Michel Mavic Ober 93 in those yellow and orange jerseys amassing themselves up towards the front, because the gap to this sole rider, Franziska Koch, who has 1 professional victory to her name, is coming down, and it's only around 20 seconds now. And perhaps the aim of trying to get to the top of Horseshoe Pass with a good advantage intact. She's taken some points in the Queen of the Mountain, but perhaps not the big points they might have been after Team DSM Firmenich post-Anel.
Yeah, I think so. And also going back to yesterday, if we look at the damage that was done on that second Queen of the Mountains points, that was actually a Category 2 climb and only 3.3 kilometres in length. This is nearly double that. So there could be huge damage done on this climb, and I think a lot of teams will go into this with a huge objective to make this race really hard. So now it's that kind of little lull, that calm before the storm, where the riders will be told to make sure that they're fueled well, make sure they get rid of any liquid in their bottles at the bottom of the climb, because of course you don't want to carry any weight that is unnecessary up the climb. We know how important power to weight ratio is, especially on the steep sections of the climb, and then they'll be getting well positioned into the base.
A climb like today, particularly positioning, 18 seconds the advantage for Koch from Mettmann, the German rider. Positioning, making sure that they're all up towards the front. On the left-hand side, you've got Team DSM Firmenich Postenal in the blue and orange jersey. Next to them in the yellow and orange, it's Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93. Then you've got Hess Pro Cycling in the green and black jersey. Lizzie Deignan never too far away from the front. She's such a brilliant rider who can position herself so well. She tactically so astute, but knowing where to position herself in a peloton, it's a work of art watching.
It is, and it comes with experience, but it's also initiative and knowing where to be at the right time, doing your homework. But it comes with years and years of pike racing, and Lizzie Deignan was picked up through the talent team, Talent Spotted, when she was, I think, around 14 years of age. So British Cycling came into her school and ran some testing and found that she had a talent for bike riding. She spent many years out in Belgium riding kermesses, and then started out in the professional teams and professional ranks. So yeah, she knows what she's doing. She's a master tactician, and I think what makes a good tactician is when riders don't actually have to think about the tactics. They just do it.
It seems to come naturally to her.
It does, yeah, and I think she knows the riders, the compositions, the wheels to follow, where to be at the right time, saving that energy, because ultimately that is crucial, especially in a stage race where you have multiple days of racing, and come stage 4, it's important to save those little bits of energy along the way.
Well, Franziska Koch takes a look over her right-hand shoulder. She can see her teammates who have amassed themselves on the left-hand side of the screen as we look at it, the right-hand side of the road. She can see one of her main leaders in Pfeiffer Georgie, who is right there, the British champion. And Franziska Koch, despite being in the breakaway alone for many, many kilometres, she slots herself right onto the front of the peloton and basically does the job she's been doing, but alone now in front of the peloton here.
Yeah, she did this job in Ride London, and she did such a brilliant ride there in looking after her teammates in Charlotte Kool, who they were riding for in that race only last week. And here she'll be doing all she can to make sure Pfeiffer Georgie is as best positioned as she possibly can be into the base of this climb. And you can almost sense the nervousness now in the peloton as the teams are starting to form in that lead out formation. A couple of the riders just getting on the drops here as well, trying to get as aerodynamic as they possibly can be, get as much power through those pedals as they can. Tennille Campbell, what a job she did yesterday as well. A huge turn on that climb, didn't she? The Trinidad and Tobago rider for Liv Alulo-Jaco on the right-hand side of the screen there.
Absolute terrific job, and she's one of those riders, along with Franziska Koch and many other of the domestiques who do a lot of that early work. Speaking of Christine Majerus or Chantal van den Broek-Black or even Elena Cecchini, for example, a lot of the work they do often goes unseen, and you don't see how much work they have done to protect their leaders in going back to the team car for bottles, getting warm clothing or taking back clothing to the team cars, keeping them sheltered, because we saw yesterday predominantly we had a headwind, a head crosswind throughout the whole stage, and that made a huge difference to the fatigue of the riders, saving energy, and it'll be the same today as well.
Yeah, it did, and Lizzie said as herself that unfortunately with the wind, it kind of, she felt that it made the race more negative than the route lended itself to be, and she was thankful that they managed to do something on that second Queen of the Mountain point. But cycling is so unique in that regard that even though it is such a team sport, only one rider gets to stand on the top step of that podium and take all of the glory. Whereas, say, for example, with football, the goal scorer scores the goal, but it's the whole team that take the victory at the end of the match. It's kind of unfair in that regard, but it is our sport. And thankfully now we have so much more coverage of women's racing. It means we can see that integral work that these domestiques are doing, because for each and every stage, every single rider will have a role within the race, whether that be early on in the race to get themselves into the break, to go back to the team car, to get bottles, to make sure their leader is well positioned, or the leader themselves to make sure they are always saving energy when they can, or in the crucial moments at the right time.
The peloton passed through Llangollen, located here on the River Dee. Takes its name from the Welsh language for a religious settlement. You can see we just passed through that small tourist centre. It's very attractive to tourists who arrive here with the Llangollen Canal. You've got the Motor Museum, the Steam Railway, the Offers Dyke, that long distance walking path. So much to do, and the town itself has a wealth of independent shops ranging from accommodation to suit everyone. A great holiday destination up here, and so much to do and see too. One of the famous points of Horseshoe Pass, of course, is the cafe at the top. Lots of motorists and motorcyclists and cyclists alike often go there for a cafe stop, and of course we know how much cyclists love the cafe stops, love the coffee stops.
We do. It's ingrained in us, isn't it? It's almost part of the sport. Make sure you scoop out the good coffee on your routes of your bike ride that you've got planned.
Can't go wrong, can't go wrong. Well, for these riders, no time to think about coffee stops, cafe stops, or the Ponderosa Cafe at the top of this climb, because the one and only categorised one climb of the day, the second Queen of the Mountain of the day, is soon approaching. They'll get to the bottom of the Horseshoe Pass, which is no stranger, particularly to British riders in terms of the Hill Climb Championships. It's been a host of the National Hill Climb Championships on 3 occasions, and for other nations, they're not too familiar of what the National Hill Climb Championships are. I feel like it's very much a British discipline that takes place from around September through the winter months.
It is, but an important one at that, and we have riders now really becoming specific in the Hill Climb Championships. And Illy Gardner, who took this championships back in 2022 on this climb, is one of those riders who has set out to take kind of her Strava QOMs on Alpe d'Huez or whatever the most famous climbs are around the world. And I actually spoke to Illy Gardner, and apparently the climb used in the Hill Climbing Championships, the national championships, was actually a different climb. It ran parallel, a different road of Horseshoe Pass. It ran parallel to this one that the riders are using today. But I had a little look on Strava, and it's a really tough climb that the riders have got. It's around a 13-minute climb. That is the Queen of the Mountain Strava record for this segment. Really steep towards the bottom, and again it levels off and then becomes very steep at the top. So you can see riders now out of the saddle. I always really enjoy looking at different riders' styles as well and how they climb. Some riders opting to be seated for as long as possible, and others like to ride in the saddle.
I was looking at what you were just talking about with Illy Gardner when she won that national championship in 2022. And I was looking at who won the men's championship that year. Andrew Feather. What a great name for a hill climb champion.
Got to be as light as a feather, haven't you, to get up them as quick as you can possibly be. But it is a bit of an art, isn't it, climbing? And it's also so psychological. I really struggled on climbs when I first started riding, and then just really tried to turn around my psychology and kind of tried to relish the climbs rather than dreading them.
But how would you approach a climb like this? Because the first kilometre of the climb averages 8.1%, and you see gradients of 10, 11, 12, 13% consistently in this first kilometre of the climb. So when you have been racing, you've had quite a nice entrance into the climb, albeit it's very, very fast and the speed is high. You've got the entrance into the climb, it immediately kicks up, and there's no real respite on that climb. You have to really find your rhythm.
Yeah, and it's hard to find your rhythm when you've got undulating gradients throughout a climb. If it's one gradient from bottom to top, it's easy to get into your rhythm, your pedaling style, the cadence, which is how fast you're pedaling ultimately. But it's all about positioning here and being looked after by your team. You can see that there's a fast pace being set here. A couple of the riders just struggling to hold on to the back of the peloton. I'm sure they will be able to for a few more kilometres in hand, and that's what their goal will be, to try and stay attached for as long as possible here until those big moves are made up and in front.
Do you think any teams or riders might have changed their gear selection for today in terms of their cassette on the back to accommodate such a steep climb, or they would just stick with the setup they had yesterday?
I think they would stick with the setup they had yesterday. We had it in the Giro a few years ago where they went up the Mighty Zoncolon, which is one of the hardest climbs in the world, where it's kind of double digits for over 10 kilometres. And in that sense, on a climb like that, you would have a kind of compact chain ring, a very big cassette on the back. But for today, I'd be very, very surprised if the riders change the setup that they've got. I think ultimately the riders won't ever get into a situation where they can't have that kind of nice fluid pedaling style, and you'll just find that on those steeper sections, you'll see the riders getting out of the saddle.
Well, it's been a long day out in a solo breakaway for Franziska Koch after her work to try and lead her teammates in towards the base of the Horseshoe Pass. She's trying to hang on at the back of this peloton. She's got company in Lucy Nelson, the 23-year-old British rider from Torelli. But you can see the pace being set on the front. Georgia Baker on the right-hand side for Liv Alula-Jayco. Tennille Campbell, she's done a sterling job today. She's coming back for more, though, by the looks of things. And still, already the road's starting to rise, and we're not actually at the official start of this Queen of the Mountain. You can just see that green sign there indicating when the Horseshoe Pass will start. This Category 1 climb, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 points available for the first 10 riders to cross the line. And of course, Lizzie Deignan leading that competition ahead of Heidi Franz, the rider from Life Plus Wahoo. On to the start of the climb, the Horseshoe Pass. This Category 1 climb, 4.2 kilometres long, 6.4% average gradient, and already riders are struggling to meet the demands of the base of this climb.
Yeah, Francie Koch there, just going out the back for Team DSM Firmenich Post NL after her huge effort being out front solo for a lot of this race so far. But day's done. There we go for Francie Koch. Little smile, little grimace.
She seems to have enjoyed that one.
I mean, she can enjoy the views, can't she, now up ahead? But it's Elena Cecchini setting this pace. Lizzie Deignan is very well positioned. She's got Anna Henderson there just behind her. She was also in that move yesterday. Hugely impressive by Anna Henderson, who finished 6th on yesterday's stage in her second comeback of 2024 after breaking her collarbone back at the start of the season in Setmana Valenciana, and then again on stage 2 in the Vuelta only a few weeks ago. So incredible riding and comeback from Anna Henderson.
The peloton passed the famous Britannia Inn. Established in 1462, Jo Tinley starting to find herself in difficulty, as is Darcy Richards of Das Hutchinson Brother UK. Tennille Campbell, well, her job is done for the day in protecting Letizia Paternoster.
Always a huge sign of a rider that's struggling up a climb is that kind of excess of body movement, knees out, elbows out, that shuffle on the saddle as well. Some riders do go against that theory, but generally you can tell when a rider is struggling because they're kind of all over that bike. Look at the lovely style here of Elena Cecchini, Christine Margerouse as well, to her left-hand side on the road, just putting every single watt of power through those pedals as possible.
But you can see from this camera angle of how much damage they're doing to the rest of the peloton here, and we can start to see Danique Hankeveld, the Dutch rider, start to be distanced for Team DSM Firmenich Post NL, and you can see riders are dropping off, little gaps starting to open up, and this is only in the early stages of this climb. And even though we've got this is the final queen of the mountain, there's still lots of climbing to come. And you can see, look at the back of this peloton. Charlotte Cool is distant. We can also see here Emma Caitlin Dimbleby, along with her teammate. That's Beth Morrow, the British rider. Just in front of her is Tilda Hammerstrom, the Swedish rider for Dolcini O'Shea. So many riders are struggling to deal with the pace being set here by SD Worx Pro Time.
What we also have in this race is quite a big gap, you would say, in terms of the level of riders. A lot of the British riders in the smaller teams might be that they're still working a job alongside their cycling career, or perhaps in education if they're a young rider. So as much as we talk about how far cycling's come and what a great place we're in, there's still a huge discrepancy against a team like SD Worx Pro Time and one of these smaller continental teams.
Talking of riders who are still working, you only have to look to yesterday's solo breakaway rider in Lucy Harris for Pro Noctis 200 Degrees, who her day job is a meteorological data scientist.
Wow.
And normally, ordinarily, she should be in work today. She was only signed to the team at the end of May. What was that? Last week. And so for her work week is looking very, very different.
Surprisingly, Krista Dobell-Hickok here, number 35 for Human Powered Health, is also struggling. She's a rider that I was bigging up as being one of the best climbers, so that's a real surprise there, the American rider. But exactly like you said, Hannah, it's the ability to recover that those riders that are working won't have. It's not the fact they won't be able to train potentially as much. I had riders that I was coaching who were getting up at 4 a.m. to fit the training demands in, but it's that recovery that makes all the difference. That's when you are becoming a stronger athlete after the work you've done in training, to be able to recover, to rebuild those muscles stronger, and that's what those riders won't have the opportunity to do.
Alicia Gonzalez of Life Plus War, who also one of the riders who is in a little bit of difficulty, along with Bronwyn McGregor of Torelli. There's a big difference, and particularly after yesterday's demanding stage, that fatigue will really be setting in. But this type of climb, Danny, is very different to what they might be used to on the continent, for example, when we see long alpine climbs. This is... The British roads are very, very different. The way they feel, the way you can race on them.
They're harder for sure, and I think if you had seen a climb of 4.2 kilometres at 6.4%, like you said, in Europe, Hannah, you might think, oh, that's nothing to worry about necessarily, because of the nature of the tarmac and the roads. They flow easier, they're less grippy, less relentless. It actually makes it a lot harder. So this is the leading group. You can see Chantal Vandenbroek Black, number 6. And do you know who I spotted still in this group? Lorena Wiebes. What a rider she is, and I know I talk about her time and time again, but the versatility of her as an athlete is just something to behold. And she said, I think it was after last season, maybe the season before, she wanted to become a more complete rider, to win more bike races. She is a winner, and that's exactly what she's done. You can see her just slotted in behind Eleanor Barker with that yellow Uno X helmet on there for SD Worx Pro Time.
It's quite incredible, and what she's done in trying to have that transformation is she hasn't lost any of the speed or power needed to still be the world's best sprinter currently.
And that's always the worry,
which is a hard thing to juggle, because we've seen that in the past where riders have wanted to start to excel, as we see Lorena Wiebes right on cue, the former European champion. We've seen riders try to improve in certain areas, but it's at the detriment of perhaps one of their strengths.
Yes, because generally if you're trying to improve how well you climb, it's down to losing weight. Potentially we talk about that power to weight ratio, which has to be done meticulously with the right team behind you, because you don't want to be losing that power, and that is what is her golden ticket to winning these bike races. So it's clear to see that she's got that team around her to be able to do it in the right way, the most professional way, with her training demands, really training to the demands of the races that she is targeting, the team are targeting. And for Lotte Kopecky as well, to have Lorena Wiebes, they've come this real force to be reckoned with, and they can race knowing that they've, you know, for Lotte Kopecky, she can have a more open race, knowing that she's got Lorena Wiebes behind. It's just worked really, really well. We questioned how it was going to work when Lotte Kopecky was signed into the team, but somehow it has just worked perfectly.
And they've both extended with the team. They'll both remain with SD Works Pro Time. And Kopecky is another one of those riders who has made that change. Before, we'd see her winning bunch sprints, and she has become that more complete all-round rider. Here we can see on the front still Christine Majerus, the Luxembourgish champion in the red, white and light blue tricolor. We've got Abby Smith, who is still up there. She's got her compatriot and teammate Pfeiffer Georgie, the British champion, in the wheel. Anna Henderson is still there. Eleanor Barker, Lizzie Dignan in the blue jersey as the leader of the Queen of the Mountains competition. Josie Talbot still in this leading group for Cofidis in the red alongside one of her teammates. I did catch a glimpse earlier on. There she is, just popping out in the white jersey. Aline Janssen of Volker Vessels. What a wonderful performance the Dutch rider is having. Only started cycling a couple of years ago, and her trajectory is being quite impressive.
She's had a great season, hasn't she, Elaine Jensen? And her ride yesterday was really impressive. I mean, 3 minutes and 50 seconds over second place in that young riders category. So Linda Zanetti from Human Powered Health is the rider sat in second position there. And again, being in this front group just shows the form that she's got. So this is that horseshoe pass. This is why it's called horseshoe pass, because you've got that kind of horseshoe shape within the climb now. The riders are just taking that sweeping right-hand bend. So the finish line of this Queen of the Mountains point isn't too far ahead now, but it does start to ramp up soon.
You can see the difference. Earlier on, it was quite protected by the trees, and as we've continued to climb up Horseshoe Pass, where it's more exposed, there's very little opportunity for shelter, and the wind is blowing today as we start to see, and here comes the move from our Lloyds Bank leader. It's Lotte Kopecky in the green jersey who decides she wants to try and make a move, but immediately it's Letizia Paternoster of Liverlula Jake who's straight onto the wheel of the world champion. It leaves Lizzie Dignan having to close along with one rider from Saint-Michel, Mavic Aubert 93.
She's really trying to extend her lead now, isn't she? Lotte Kopecky clearly feeling good. We saw this in the UAE Tour at the start of the year where she won and took that win overall on the Jabal. Her feet climb just showed what sort of climber she is, even on the longer climbs. And Henderson, though, the British rider on this comeback, what a ride for her. She's just slotted herself nicely on the wheel of Letizia Paternoster here.
Letizia Paternoster isn't able to follow. She goes past that tree and it's an explosion on the Horseshoe Pass. It's Lotte Kopecky and Anna Henderson, the rider who is in the white jersey, a part of that Great Britain national team, on her comeback, the second comeback of 2024, having broken a collarbone on 2 occasions. Only 500 meters to go until the top of the Horseshoe Pass, and Lotte Kopecky is wanting to make sure that she can do as much damage as possible, where possible, and using this Queen of the Mountain. Paternoster is absorbed by the chasing group behind. She's not able to follow, and take a look at how this group has whittled down. Janssen's there, Georgie's there, we've got Brunel who is there, as well as Giemann.
Lotte Kopecky is giving it absolutely everything she's got now. Like you said, Hannah, just trying to extend this gap as far as possible. They've got about 6.5 kilometres of undulation over the top. There's a small descent of around 3 kilometres. It kicks back up for 600 and then descends back down for the final kilometre. So for these riders, it'll be interesting to see what the British team doing with Lizzie Dignan in that jersey behind here as well. For Anna Henderson,
Lotte Kopecky is coming to the top of the Horseshoe Pass. She's the one who has decided to do all of the damage. She crests the top, she takes the 10 points in the Queen of the Mountains at the top of the Horseshoe Pass. It's Anna Henderson who takes the 9, and it leaves Lizzie Dignan wanting to try and chase this one back, knowing that the general classification is currently riding out of her hands, but crucially, she picks up 8 points to that blue jersey she has on her shoulders too.
Yeah, so she'll be wearing that jersey into tomorrow's stage 3 for sure after securing those 8 points. It looks like Anna Henderson has been given the green light here to work with Lotte Kopecky. So that communication would have come from both Lizzie Dignan and Chris Newton, who is their director sportif in the car. So she's obviously feeling good here to work with the SD Works Pro Time rider.
And we'd already heard from them that they had quite an open goal here, the Great Britain national team, and you can see that Eleanor Barker has made it into this group. Lorena Wiebes just speaking into the radio around halfway down the group here.
I mean, this is absolutely perfect for SD Worx. Having Lorena Wiebes in this group behind, she can just follow. So can Lizzie Deignan. So it's the team of Michelle Ober 93 who are the chasers. They had Victoria Guilman in that group yesterday. She's lying 7th on general classification at 12 seconds. So with 3 riders in this group, they are the team that are being looked at to do all the chasing.
Taking a look as the third group on the road crest the top of the Horseshoe Pass. 3 riders, and we've got riders scattered all over the Welsh countryside here. Torelli are part of this group. Volker Vessels, as we start to see the cars have been told they can move forward. Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93 have 3 riders in that chasing group behind. Is the onus on them to try and bring things back here?
Yeah, absolutely. With the maximum number of riders in that group, and with having Victor Gilman in the group as well, who was in that front group of 9 yesterday, it will be on them. The onus will be on them to chase here. They might be offered a little bit of assistance. We'll see from the teams that are also in that front group of 9. But you can just see the intent here, the body language of Lotte Kopecky as she's railing it down this descent, looking for the fastest line. She won't gap Anna Henderson. Anna Henderson being one of the best descenders as well, the former downhill skier. So that will be advantageous for this pair as well. They won't be losing any time on the descent.
But you've got 2 excellent descenders here. They're not going to drop each other. They can only help and aid each other in this situation. Particularly thinking about when you get to the bottom of the descent, you're not having to make that decision, should I wait 5 or 6 seconds for the rider behind, or should I continue to push on? Right now, we've got 2 superb descenders, fantastic climbers. They're very evenly matched in terms of their capabilities on this terrain that we've got to come.
Yeah, and it's a perfect scenario, really, to be evenly matched with a breakaway compatriot, because you want to be able to share that workload and ride most efficiently to give yourself the best chance of riding all the way to the finish. And at the bottom of the first part of this descent, so after 3 kilometers from the top, the riders will take a right-hand turn, and they'll be riding in predominantly a tailwind all the way into Wrexham, so that will be advantageous for them. We know how much harder it is to stay away into a headwind versus a tailwind, so that will also benefit our 2 leaders here.
Particularly when the chase is on behind. Pfeiffer Georgie, at the last look that we had, didn't seem to have any teammates with her at that point. She did have Abby Smith earlier on, but over the top of the Horseshoe Pass, it seems as though that the British champion is alone in that chasing group. Lizzie Deignan was in that group, along with Eleanor Barker.
It's what makes a fantastic champion in Lizzie Deignan as well, because she could have easily said to Anna Henderson, look, just sit on here. We heard in that race interview that she wanted to get a result in this race, but she's obviously said to Anna Henderson, try your luck, give yourself an opportunity here. She knows how strong she is, how well she's going, even after the adversity of these multiple collarbone fractures that she's had this season. So I think that just shows the type of rider, the type of person that she is as well, to give Anna Henderson herself this opportunity.
We've got 2 riders who have their sights set on the Olympic Games. This is a huge year for cycling, and of course across all sports and all disciplines. But particularly for these 2 riders, of course they've got their sights set on Paris 2024, and we know that publicly, as far as we're aware, the British team hasn't been announced who will be representing Great Britain in the road race all-time trial. And so for Anna Henderson, she's got that goal in the forefront of her mind to make sure that she can come back, to recover from that injury, to make sure that she's back on top form. The motivation is certainly there to be getting the training back in and getting back into racing and showing that it's not been easy, but she's able to come back from the adversity.
She's come back fighting, hasn't she? And that was that right-hand turn that they just made after that 600-metre section that just kicked up again. But like you said, Hannah, that Olympic selection will be on the forefront of these riders' minds, and it's a different dynamic to come into a race where you're riding for your national team. They're not used to riding together, and they know the criteria that would have been set by British cycling to get themselves that kind of golden ticket into the Olympics. It's the pinnacle of any athlete's career to be selected and to be able to represent your country in the Olympic Games. So Anna Henderson doing a fantastic job at that so far.
Our leading duo enter into Llandegla. Close by, we've got the Forest, home to One Planet Adventure, one of the best mountain biking destinations. If that's your form of two wheels, your discipline on two wheels, something for everybody, no matter the experience or ability. Brilliant place to go if you like your off-road riding. Plenty of trails and the visitor centre too. For these two riders, they're on the tarmac and they're looking to try and take glory into Wrexham. They've got a great dynamic and cohesion between Kopecky and Henderson, and behind the group has swelled. A couple more riders have joined this chasing group. Pfeiffer Georgie, fortunately, now has a teammate. That's Abby Smith, who's on the front. Another rider who's come back from illness and injury. And Lizzie Dignan almost seems as though she's got a smile etched across her face. Likewise with Lorena Wiebes in the purple.
Yeah, this is going to be instrumental to Pfeiffer Georgie and her quest. Look, she's going back to Elaine Janssen here, trying to motivate her to start riding as well. So for the young Volker Wessels rider, Pfeiffer Georgie is going to talk into the, well, it looks like Elaine Janssen just talking into the radio probably as to what to do and whether to ride on the front with Abby Smith here.
Elaine Janssen has a teammate in this group too, so perhaps let's get confirmation from Raymond Roll, our sports director in the car. Let's see, okay, what's the situation? What should we do at this point? Should we be the team that has the onus on our shoulders to ride? Looking around, there's Linda Zanatti. She was there or thereabouts, but she doesn't seem to be in this group. So Elaine Janssen, in terms of that Best Young Riders jersey, she's quite comfortable so far.
She is comfortable, but I guess it depends on the goal of the team for today and whether they're going for the stage victory as well. And I guess that would have been the conversation to fight from Pfeiffer Georgie to Elaine Janssen. Are you going to help with this chase? And it's always so, oh, it looked like she was just running off the road there,
Dear
Elaine
me.
Janssen. She just lost concentration there. You've got to be so focused at every moment. But it does. It looks like her teammate here, they've been given the all clear. She's talking into the radio. So that comes with experience as well for Pfeiffer Georgie to go straight to Elaine Janssen there. Will you offer up help, the assist in this chase to try and close that gap down?
You can see why the British champion Pfeiffer Georgie makes such a good road captain within her professional trade team. She's going along talking to different riders from rival teams here. She's talking to Volker Wessels, who have now put one rider up towards the front to try and assist Abby Smith in limiting and bringing back Kopecky and Henderson. But she's also going back to Josie Talbot of Cofidis. She's gone back to Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93 too.
Yeah, and strangely, her teammate, and we'll get confirmation of who that is shortly, has just come back. You saw Lizzie Dignan just opening up the gap to Abby Smith to slot in behind her. However, she's now gone back to her teammate Elaine Janssen just to get concentration as to what to do here. So it looks like Elaine Janssen is making a hand gesture to the Michel Aubert 93 team rider who's just come to the front to offer in this chase now as well.
Well, whatever Pfeiffer Georgie is saying to the rival teams,
she's using her
let's have a look
initiative.
at what happened here. This was the moment when Elaine Janssen in the white jersey, she just went down a little pothole on the left-hand side of the road there, managed to save it as she was talking into the race radio. But that could have been a nasty one there.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was a pothole or she actually clipped the back wheel of Lorena Wiebes. But yeah, absolutely, Hannah. And when you've got one hand off your handlebars talking into the radio or taking a gel out of your back pocket or a bottle potentially, that's where it becomes a little bit dangerous. And you've just got to try and keep your face forward, keep your eyes forward as to the road in front of you, where those little potholes are and where that front wheel is. but very well held up there by the rider leading in the young riders classification in Aline Jansen, the Volker Vessels rider.
Let's have another little look here. This was the moment. Goes into a little pothole, managed to save it.
Yeah, very well saved there. Like you said, Hannah, it was a little divot in the road. Just lost front wheel momentarily, but managed to hold it up. So that was great to see. That could have been nasty. Elena Barker has also made it into this group. Letizia Paternoster and Christine Margerus, the Luxembourgish champion as well, just getting herself onto the back of this chasing group here. Lorena Wiebes, she's trying to keep her powder dry, save as much energy as possible, because if this does come down to a bunch sprint, she'll be the rider from SD Worx Pro Time, I'm sure, being led out for the win.
Well, let's just bring you the results of that Category 1 horseshoe pass, the Queen of the Mountain. It was Lotte Kopecky who took the 10 points ahead of Anna Henderson, who took the 9 points. It was Lizzie Dynan who took the 8 points. And then it was our Mia Mott, who suffered a crash earlier on in the day, who took the points after that. Then it was Wiebes into Brunel, who has been performing wonderfully. Let's have a little look at what happened earlier on and how this breakaway came to fruition on the horseshoe pass here, because we already started to see a large split in the peloton, a large group going off the back very early on. You can see how exposed it is as it traverses its way up this climb. But it was relentless from the very beginning.
It was, and it climbed before the categorised section of the climb actually started, didn't it? We saw that natural acceleration in the peloton as the teams were coming together in that lead-out formation to make sure they were all well positioned at the bottom of the climb, and then it's absolutely blown to pieces on the climb. You can see multiple groups spread along the entirety of this beautiful shot that we've got here from the helicopter. It was Christine Margerus that did the majority of the early work for SD Worx Pro Time, and then of course it was our world champion, our leader in this race, Lotte Kopecky, that made that big move over the top.
Well, still, the two riders out front continue to lead. Henderson sharing the workload with the world champion, Lotte Kopecky. Pfeiffer Georgie, well, she's got more and more teams helping at the front. Still, now there's 3 teams, and putting riders in front of Lizzie Dynan, who was acting as a real barrier and trying to stop the cohesion in the chasing group behind. They've managed to get in front of her. We've got one rider from Volker Vessels, Saint-Michel Mavic-Aubert 93 in the yellow and orange jersey with one rider. Likewise with Abby Smith at Team DSM Firmenich Post-Nl.
Yeah, absolutely. For Lizzie Dynan, she was just offering up that little bit of polite interference, and also for the British national team. They're in a great position here, of course, with Lizzie Dynan sat where she is on the general classification, and Anna Henderson being in that front group yesterday puts himself in a really strong place. Lotte Kopecky sharing that workload with Anna Henderson. This is our finish line into Wrexham today. So Wrexham to Wrexham stage.
Well, this is a little look at what they've got to come, and I'm sure because we started in Wrexham, many teams would have done a little recon of the run-in to the finish today, just to make sure that they know exactly what is to come. We're going through a little bit of a low signal area, all of this coverage coming to you via 4G and 5G. Brilliant that we can bring you this UCI Women's World Tour stage race with fantastic live coverage out in the beautiful countryside in Wales, heading for Wrexham.
Yeah, you mentioned the finish, Hannah, and it's actually quite a technical one within that 1 kilometre to go. So from 4 to 1 kilometres, it is pretty much dead plan, flat and dead straight with a tailwind. But then when we get inside that 1 kilometre to go, at 900 metres to go, the riders will take a 90-degree right. At 600, the road bears left, and then right again, and with 500 to go it narrows through the town centre and then opens up with about 200 metres to go. So the riders have to be aware of that narrowing with about 500 metres to go, especially if this comes back together and we've got a big group coming into the finale.
Now we have the full confirmation of the horseshoe pass. It was Kopecky from Henderson, Dignan, Meermont, Wiebes, Brunel, Barker, Gilman, Georgie and Janssen, who were the first 10 riders to crest the top of that Category 1 horseshoe pass. The wind is blowing. In terms of where we are now, we've got 15 kilometres to go until the finish line, and in some parts of the course, Danny, we've got a lot of protection from the trees, the hedgerows. In other parts, as Anna Henderson just has a chat into the race radio, it's exposed. And does this benefit the chasers behind?
Yes, you would say so, because they can share that workload ultimately. And where the riders are now on the course, it's more of a crosswind from the riders' right-hand side, and then they'll kind of take that sweeping road round to the right, and then it'll be more of a tailwind into Wrexham. But currently, like you said, it's slightly open, and generally the wind doesn't play a factor in British racing because of the high hedgerows that we've got. But it's definitely something to be aware of, especially if it's a head or a tailwind, because then that will definitely change the dynamic of racing, and that's what we saw yesterday. But on this really fast rolling straight section of the road now, so these two riders trying to get into that aero tuck position. Lotte Kopecky just being able to freewheel, take stock, take a big deep breath as well, take on some fuel if she needs it, and Anna Henderson still pedaling out in front, trying to keep the speed as high as she possibly can here.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Stage 2 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. This is Stage 2, starting and finishing in Wrexham, a 140.1 kilometre stage, over 1,375 metres of elevation. We had our lone leader, that was Franziska Koch, the 23-year-old German rider from Team DSM Firmenich Postenel, who gained 3 minutes and 40 seconds. She took the maximum points in the first Queen of the Mountain of the day. That was up to Eaton Hill. Behind, there was a big chase as they battled it out for the bonus seconds in Johnston at the intermediate sprint of the day. Franziska Koch, she was caught just before the base of the climb of the Horseshoe Pass. It was all back together, and then at the bottom of the Horseshoe Pass, it was Team SD Works Pro Time who really applied the pressure, and that split the peloton into several groups. Several riders, even some of the pure climbers, were on the wrong side of those splits, and we saw a select group start to go clear. It was Lotte Kopecky, the leader in that Lloyds Bank green jersey, who took it up on the Horseshoe Pass to attack, and only Letizia Paternoster initially was able to go with the world champion. That was until Anna Henderson, the rider in the white jersey here of the Great Britain national team, was able to bridge across. Paternoster struggled to hold the wheel and was then caught by the chasers behind. The chasers behind include Victor Gilman, we've got Brunel in that group, Meermont, we've got Pfeiffer Georgie, who's currently came into the day third overall in the general classification. Wiebes is there, Majeris is there, and Lizzie Dignan. But these two have around 25 seconds of an advantage as we come into the final 14 kilometres of Stage 2. Wrexham is the destination, and there we have confirmation. 38 seconds is their advantage. Thanks for joining us. My name's Hannah Walker. Alongside me is Danny Rowe, and it's Team DSM Firmenich Postenel with Abby Smith, who is doing the chasing to try and close the gap for her leader, Pfeiffer Georgie, the British champion.
Yeah, this is full commitment here from the British rider, Abby Smith, the 22-year-old, who is doing all the work here for Pfeiffer Georgie, the only other DSM Firmenich post-NL rider who finished third on yesterday's stage. So she's looking at that general classification as a big goal for herself individually and the team here. So Abby Smith will be giving it all she's got now, and these sorts of roads definitely benefit our two breakaway riders. Twisty and turny now for the next 5 kilometres or so. There's a narrow bridge. This is probably the narrow bridge that comes with 11.4 kilometres to go. So that's where we are now on the route, 11.4 kilometres to go for the riders, and they're smaller, more twisting roads, so out of sight, out of mind.
And here goes Lotte Kopecky. She comes out of that bridge and takes Anna Henderson by surprise. Lotte Kopecky doesn't want to enter Wrexham with anybody with her, and this is a real display of prowess from the world champion. She's applying the pressure to Anna Henderson, but Anna Henderson, the British rider from the Great Britain national team, is able to respond, and she says, if you want to attack me, try me, because I'm going to be here.
Yeah, she's not going to give up without a fight, is she, Anna Henderson? And perhaps Lotte Kopecky had sensed a little bit of struggling from Anna Henderson. When you're sharing that workload, you generally find that there'll be one stronger rider, but perhaps Anna Henderson, wise to that, a great tactician in her own right, is trying to do as little work as possible and play this one tactically astute. So she's clearly still got good legs in being able to bridge that little gap that Lotte Kopecky had there.
That was perhaps the first signs of this breakaway duo where we think, okay, the trust is lost here. We've had the cohesion. You want to try and attack me. We've still got 11 kilometres remaining. And so now I'm going to be very cautious. I'm going to be very wary that you want to try and distance me. And Anna Henderson has the attributes. She's been Criterium National Champion of Great Britain in the past. She's been the Time Trial National Champion. She's got that zip. She's got that immediate power to accelerate, to react to any of these kind of moves.
She has, and I'm somewhat surprised because you would say Lotte Kopecky would be confident that she would be able to beat the British rider if it came down to a two-up sprint here. And like you said, Hannah, you'd say kind of 1 point to Anna Henderson here being able to bridge that little gap to Lotte Kopecky, because now she's going to be extremely astute to any more attacks that might come from the Belgian rider.
Still, they're not giving up the chase behind because they know with the gap less than a minute, it's still all to play for the stage victory. Pfeiffer Georgie still believes that she can do something into Wrexham and she wants to remain in the general classification. It looks as though Liv Alula-Jaco have recruited more troops towards the front. This looks like Amber Pate, who is bridged across here in that purple jersey of Liv Alula-Jaco. This is good news for the chasing group behind, but also good news for Letizia Paternoster.
Yeah, very good news for that chasing group. A little bit more firepower in that chase. It was either Amber Pate or Georgia Baker. They've got very similar styles on the bike, but even so, both incredibly strong to offer up their assistance. And for them and that team, they will be giving it absolutely everything they've got. Letizia Paternoster just showing us the form that she's in this 2024 season. It was a nail-biting finish. She thought she had it, didn't she, on yesterday's stage? And that big win coming all so close, and she definitely deserves one. She thanked her team endlessly after yesterday's stage, and again, they're doing a fantastic job here. And it just shows if you're distance on a climb that you can still be instrumental in a final, so to never ever give up.
Inside 10 kilometres to go, the group has swelled and more riders have joined this group, including one rider from Hess Pro Cycling in the green and black jersey. Volker Wessels now have recruited more riders to help Aline Janssen. This could be a real threat now that the group has swelled for the breakaway duo, because although the gap is at 38 seconds, now you've got more firepower at the front, wanting and willing to work. Christine Majerus is still there. She's trying to get in the way and trying to disrupt the chase as they go under the trees and into some of these narrow country roads here.
And that's the only problem with a group getting bigger behind. It's that cohesion that can be sometimes lost when riders are looking at each other as to, well, why aren't you chasing? Why aren't you sharing this workload? And then that plays into the hands of, you know, these two riders up ahead in Anna Henderson and Lotte Kopecky. So there has to be absolute full commitment from those teams that are chasing. So Saint Michel Mavic Ober 93 team with Victor Gilman, Dixeline Miamont and Marion Bonnell, who are in that group. For DSM Firmenich Post NL as well, which we've seen so far with the great work being done by Abby Smith. They can't afford to look at each other. These two riders are so strong in their own right. They're clearly fully committed to this move up ahead and sharing that workload evenly.
8 kilometres to go, coming up to almost 3.5 hours of racing on stage 2 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. The chase behind has swelled. We've got around 18 riders in this group who are chasing the world champion and Anna Henderson, the silver medalist in the European Time Trial Championships.
We have indeed, and like I mentioned earlier, from 4 to 1 kilometres to go. Unfortunately for our pair up ahead, it is pretty much a pan straight road, a big wide A road into that final kilometre. So that will mean that the riders will be in sight of this chasing peloton behind, give them that extra little bit of motivation. They don't have a car in between because it is within a minute. That gap has to be over a minute for the cars to be able to come past.
Taking a look behind as they make their way through the narrow country lanes, still the pursuit is on. They can't give up easily, knowing that their gap is holding steady in the leading group here, because you look at Liverlula Jaco, they've got 7 wins this season. They've got Letizia Paternoster. More and more riders have made the group. Also, Human Power and Health now have 1 rider represented.
Yeah, absolutely, and it won't be given up, no way, not without a fight, not this close to the finish line now. We just saw Christine Margeroux signalling to the motorbike riders to get ahead of the race because they don't want that motorbike to offer any assistance to the chasers to be able to get into the slipstream of the motorbike here. But it's the great camera shots that we get from the front of that rampaging peloton behind. But back to our leaders, our chasers behind, and these are the perfect roads for 2 riders to be away on. Out of sight, sweeping, turning lefts and rights until we get into that 4 kilometres to
It's
go.
out of sight, but it's certainly not out of mind. And these roads, as you say, certainly lend itself better to breakaway riders. When we get on to the run-in, particularly into the final 3 kilometres where the road opens up, it's more of a main road and into 2 kilometres to go. It certainly is better for the chasing group behind because it's wider, it's faster roads. There's a slight incline with 2 kilometres to go, that false flat road that takes you into 1 kilometre to go. You've got that little descent into after the kite. But look at this, Liverlula Jaco, they came so agonisingly close yesterday. It was a matter of millimetres between Letizia Paternoster and Lotte Kopecky. It was Kopecky in the end who denied a victory, a 5th professional victory to Letizia Paternoster. And today, they'll be motivated to turn things around. They want to come to this race and come away with the stage victory. They know they're in a good position because okay, Lorena Wiebes is here, but they know that Paternoster can be a real true challenger.
They can indeed, and she's had a multiple of top 10 finishes so far this season, and she was all so close, wasn't she? And the team worked incredibly tirelessly hard for Letizia Paternoster, who I know will be so desperate to finish it off, not just for herself, but for the team as well, who she has said she's gained so much confidence from, and that confidence, I believe, has really made a big difference in her performance this season.
The leading duo are through 5 kilometres to go. 5 kilometres, knowing that they have a good advantage over these chasers behind. They can't start to mess around, but they'll certainly be thinking, how can they beat each other into Wrexham here? There's a change at the front. Abby Smith takes over at the front once again for Team DSM Firmenich Postenel, wanting to try and limit the loss for her champion, Pfeiffer Georgie. The gap at 40 seconds. Volker Vessels in the black, white and blue jerseys have 2 riders to protect Aline Janssen. Little bit of discussion going on here between Kopecky and Henderson.
I think it would just be about full commitment to the line. They can't afford to play cat and mouse and play games in the run into this final. 40 seconds, yes, it is a lot when you look at 4 kilometres to go, but it's not enough to be able to play the games when you've got this rampaging peloton behind with so much interest from the likes of Volker Vessels, Liverlula Jaco, DSM Firmenich Postenel, who don't want to lose any time. They want to set themselves up for that victory. It is Amber Pate on the front for the Liverlula Jaco team, so I would suspect that was what that conversation would have been about there. Let's just give this everything all the way into the line.
The wind blowing, it's a cross-tail wind for the riders currently, aiding the duo who are out front, giving Amber Pate a hard time, but this is a terrific performance from the 29-year-old Australian rider. She knows how the desperation to try and bring these 2 back for Paternoster and behind. Are you surprised to see there isn't more change at the front from different riders, different teams. Amber Pate perhaps saying to Volker Wessels, come on, I need you to come through. I need you to give me a turn here.
I think for Volker Wessels, they of course have Aline Janssen in that young riders competition, and she will have that firmly on her back after today's stage without Linda Zanetti in this group behind. I'm not surprised. I think we've seen full commitment from DSM Firmenich post LL, and there comes a time when you just run out of legs and you do all you can as a team, and this chase was on early, and especially after how hard that horseshoe climb was ridden.
The pace is inferno in the chase. Riders already started to be distanced from this chasing group of 20 riders. 19 riders are in pursuit of Anna Henderson and Lotte Kopecky, and now we do see the change at the front, and Abby Smith takes it up over Amber Pate. Aline Janssen sitting in second wheel, the best young rider jersey in the white jersey. A little bit of discussion and conversation between riders from the Great Britain national team. That's Lizzie Deignan, who is in the blue jersey as the leader of the Queen of the Mountains competition. They lose 8 seconds, the leading duo. 32 seconds is their advantage. They'll take on the little bit of road furniture into the run-in here. They have the free road. They can pick the lines as they make their way into Wrexham. They're evenly matched, Danny Rowe, Anna Henderson and Lotte Kopecky, particularly when it comes to a head-to-head sprint. We know what they're capable of. We've seen Anna Henderson succeed in bunch sprints in the past and how successful she has been, but also she's not afraid to lay it all on the line and take a big risk.
She's not, and it'll be interesting to see what Anna Henderson does in this final, because she is a fast finisher. She's had 5 professional victories in her career so far. However, against the likes of Lotte Kopecky, who we've seen time and time again perform in a sprint, in a big bunch sprint, as well as being, after a hard day of racing. But Lotte Kopecky, she knows that Anna Henderson is going well. She tried her luck, didn't she, with around 8 kilometres to go, but Anna Henderson straight on the back wheel of Kopecky, who is doing, you would say, the majority of the work here into the finish. Anna Henderson now starting to sit on as we come into 1 kilometre to go.
The chasers behind have 1 kilometre remaining. It's Kopecky who leads Henderson into this sweeping left-hand corner, and now Henderson is in the prime spot. Through 500 metres to go. It's narrow, it's technical, and Kopecky, who is leading the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, is in first position. She's waiting for the move from Henderson, who is just poised, waiting, and ready. And it's Lotte Kopecky in the green jersey who starts to wind it up. It starts to narrow. They're onto the clinkers as they come into Wrexham. And where is the move going to come from? Who will blink first? Who will be the first to make a move into the finish? It's Kopecky. Kopecky has the control she has on this narrow section, the ability to go from left to right. But here comes the move from Anna Henderson. On the return to injury is Anna Henderson, who's trying to challenge Kopecky, but it looks as though it's back-to-back victories, 2 from 2. It's the world champion who shines in Wrexham, wearing the Lloyds Bank green jersey. It's Kopecky who wins stage 2, ahead of Anna Henderson, and behind it's going to be a 3rd place for Lorena Wiebes. She is going to take the 3rd place, knowing that a teammate took the stage victory. Daylight for the former European champion, and Paternoster settles for 4th. Well, she was in the prime position, Danny Rowe, but Lotte Kopecky didn't need a photo finish today. She won that stage clear as day.
She's a class act, isn't she, Lotte Kopecky? She tried her luck. She tried to attack the British rider in Anna Henderson earlier on when they found themselves ahead of the peloton at around 40 seconds, but she was on fire again today, wasn't she? No photo finish needed, but great performance by Anna Henderson nonetheless.
Terrific performance from Henderson on the return to racing after that injury. 2 collarbone breaks this season, and a special mention for Amber Pate for all of the work she did to try and limit and bring back the 2 leaders for Letizia Paternoster. Stalwart performance from the Australian. 2 from 2. They set out their targets ahead of the race. Danny Stam saying that They wanted to come to the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. They wanted to win every single stage. They accomplished it yesterday, although it took a while for us to get the confirmation in that photo finish. They've done it again today. Danny Rowe, talk us through this finish here.
I think Anna Henderson did the right job. She stopped working pretty early on. She sat on the wheel of Lotte Kopecky, and we were just waiting, biding our time. Lotte Kopecky kept looking over her shoulder, over her right-hand shoulder, over her left, just checking when the jump was going to come from the British rider. That was through around 200 metres to go. It was slightly uphill, like you mentioned, Hannah. But Lotte Kopecky, when she opened that gas, that explosive power, Anna Henderson just couldn't respond. Chapeau. What a fantastic victory from the Belgian rider.
It's a world champion victory in Wrexham. It was a clear bike length over Anna Henderson. Anna Henderson would have been looking for the victory, but she must be delighted with that performance today in the way that she has been able to perform. As we take a look at the team bus parking, still riders coming in yesterday. Ruby Roseman Gannon in that breakaway. She comes in the Australian champion in the green and gold, as does Heidi Franz. Anna Henderson has to be happy with that performance.
She should be so proud of the performance that she delivered today, especially on the climb and the way that she got herself into that move with Lotte Kopecky. You can look at a result and sometimes it doesn't give us that overall picture of the performance in hand, but today Anna Henderson was absolutely on fire. They rode at blistering pace up Horseshoe Pass, and she's come back from a huge adversity in 2 collarbone breaks in this season alone. Physically, mentally, she's put the work in and she's back.
We take a look over Wrexham City itself, a city synonymous with football, and of course the Football Association of Wales was founded in Wrexham in 1876. 12 years after, it was the local football club which was established, and it's the oldest club in Wales. In fact, the 3rd oldest in the world. It's quite synonymous with cycling as well. We've had finishes of the men's Tour of Britain here in the past. 2022, we had Olaf Koy winning the bunch sprint. In 2015, it was Elia Viviani who took the victory there. Lotte Kopecky etches her name into the Cycling Hall of Fame in Wrexham now too, as still riders continue to come in after such a hard, demanding day, and all caused by the Horseshoe Pass. And the Backstead coming in there in the white jersey for the Great Britain national team, as does Millie Cousins.
I really enjoyed that stage. It was fantastic, wasn't it? And again, Wrexham delivering the sunshine. And like you said, Lotte Kopecky in the history books of what has become a worldwide famous town now because of, like you said, Hannah, the Football Association and the infamous duo of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney purchasing the club back in 2020, 15 years out of the league, and now they've been promoted on 2 occasions.
Yeah, back into League One. Wrexham AFC. Putting Wales on the map, particularly North Wales and Wrexham. And you say about the weather, they've been treated, haven't they? Because it's been quite atrocious over the last couple of weeks here in Great Britain. Now we're in Wales. The last 2 stages of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women in England, it's got a lot to live up to with its weather.
It has, and from someone that lives in Wales myself, I can tell you that this hasn't been the general weather forecast lately. It's rained a lot, so great to see the riders having this very nice weather to race in the last 2 days.
Well, at 11:15 local time, 84 riders rolled out of Wrexham for stage 2 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women, 140.1 kilometre stage, 1,375 metres of elevation. And it was an active start because Franziska Koch was adamant she wanted to make it into the breakaway. It was Georgia Baker who was patrolling the moves for Liv Alula-Jayco, and this was the moment where Franziska Koch started to open up her advantage because the rider from Great Britain national team, that's Millie Cousins, didn't want to follow. There was a lull in the action.
Yeah, this was an interesting part of the race and questionable tactics, you would say, from DSM Firmenich, where she had a teammate trying to close the gap, bridge the gap potentially to Francie Koch, who was away with around 30 seconds at this moment in the race. But a good gap developed for Francie Koch. She found herself 30 miles an hour there.
Wow.
Nice little speed sign on the side of the road. But Francie Koch, what a day out for her. She had over 3.5 minutes at one stage of the race.
Over 3.5 minutes. She went to the base of the first Queen of the Mountain of the day, and still there was a chase. It was all led by the team who, of course, have to protect the general classification, that Lloyds Bank green jersey on the shoulders of the world champion, Lotte Kopecky. SD Works Pro Time doing the work and making sure, knowing that Franziska Koch became a real threat, a real danger. The gap started to come down, but still Koch into the base of that first climb of Eaton Hill had an advantage. The climb itself, as she went into it, it's a category 3 climb, just over 1 kilometre long. And with 500 metres to go, she knew she could take the 4 points that were on offer at the top of this category 3 climb. Meanwhile, as the peloton got to the base of the climb, it was Liv Alula-Jayco, the Great Britain national team, who were amassing themselves and keeping things under control. And meanwhile, Franziska Koch had time to take on some food and nutrition just to recover from her efforts as she headed to the intermediate sprint. The intermediate sprint, of course, is always going to be a key point for those looking in the general classification, not only because of the points available for the red jersey, which is on the shoulders of Lotte Kopecky. It's been borrowed by Letizia Paternoster, but of course the 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds that are available in that general classification. The 3 bonus seconds going to Franziska Koch, along with the 4 points that puts her onto the board of that red jersey. Shortly after the intermediate sprint of the day, Franziska Koch was then reeled in by the peloton behind. She's a sucker for having her nose out in the wind because she was straight onto the front to try and set things up for her team of Team DSM Firmenich PostNL and into the base of the Category 1 climb of the day. It was Team DSM SD Works Pro Time who were at the front with Elena Cecchini on the Horseshoe Pass, Christine Majerus sharing the pacemaking, and Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93 with several riders including Bunel were up there, but the damage that was done because of the pace of SD Works Pro Time, Danny, it splintered the peloton all over the Horseshoe Pass.
It did indeed. They set a blistering pace from the bottom with Elena Cecchini and then taken over by our Luxembourgish champion in Christine Margerus. There were riders, gaps all over the road, and it was Margerus still at this stage leading the way with Lizzie Deignan hot on her heels and British rider Anna Henderson just behind. This was the moment that Lotte Kopecky, our world champion, our leader in the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain women, led the way with her attack on the climb. Letizia Paternoster was straight onto it though. With that photo finish yesterday, she didn't want to give the world champion any room.
But it was a real change because Paternoster then struggled with the pace that was being set by Kopecky, and despite being 4 or 5 bike lengths behind, Anna Henderson sensed the danger. She bridged across. It was Kopecky who took the maximum points, the 10 points in that Queen of the Mountains climb on the Horseshoe Pass, 9 points to Anna Henderson, and through 15 kilometers to go, this duo had the cohesion, they had the trust together, and they had 38 seconds over the chasing 20 riders behind.
They worked really well together, the duo of Anna Henderson and Lotte Kopecky, sharing that workload evenly, like you said, working cohesively together. And they had a good gap at this moment in time. The riders desperately behind, trying to close the gap. It was mainly DSM Firmenich PostNL with Abby Smith on the front, and this was into the finish in Wrexham.
Into Wrexham, it was Lotte Kopecky who had the prime position. She had the pole position in front of Anna Henderson. Henderson tried to challenge, but the narrow nature of the run into Wrexham favoured the world champion. It was 2 from 2 in a rainbow shone in Wrexham, with Kopecky taking the victory. No photo finish needed. It was Henderson who settled for second, and behind it was Daylight for Weebers, who took third place on the stage ahead of Paternoster and Georgie. Well, as ever, it was an enthralling stage. This rider, a big hat tip to Amber Pate. The work that she did into the finish to try and limit the time gap and try and bring things back to give Letizia Paternoster an opportunity to go for the stage victory today. The work that Pate did was exceptional.
Yeah, such selfless riding, wasn't it?
And she
by
came back
Amber
from,
Pate?
she rejoined the chasing group, let's not forget. She was dropped on the horseshoe pass.
She did, and she's strong in that time trial discipline, having podiumed in the National Time Trial Championships on multiple occasions. So she really comes into her own when she is riding that measured effort to try and close down a gap. But it just shows again the work of these domestiques and what it means to the leaders, because Letizia Paternoster was hugely appraising her team of all the work that they've done and the confidence they've given in Letizia Paternoster, and I'm sure that big win won't be far away. Lotte Kopecky, though, making headroads into that lead, opening up that gap to Anna Henderson, who I believe will now be sitting in second on general classification, being in that front group of 9 yesterday, and then Letizia Paternoster in third. So still all very much to play for, Hannah.
All to play for. 2 stages remain. Tomorrow we head across the border into England, starting and finishing in Warrington stage 3. On stage 4, the riders get underway from the Manchester Vela Park, heading for Lee, predominantly a stage around the east and north of Manchester. It's going to be a hard stage, 99 kilometres, lots of climbing, lots of elevation. Tomorrow, when you take a look at the parkour, you take a look at the route, it's very much suited to a bunch sprint. It's one for the sprinters. It's been one that's been earmarked and asterisked as a sprinter's stage. But we know the Cheshire Lanes can throw anything up in the air. We've seen that in the past in the men's Tour of Britain when Ian Stannard upset the sprinters and he won solo.
Yeah, upset the apple cart, didn't he? And that's what the riders are going to have to be really focused on tomorrow and attentive, because like you say, the road book, the race organiser in Rod Ellingworth has deemed it as a sprinter's stage, but that's what we love about bike racing and women's bike racing, at that very unpredictable. And then on stage 4 as well, Ramsbottom Rake, a 1 kilometre, but such a steep climb at around 10%. So still all to play for.
Let's have a look how the race unfolded, because this was on the Horseshoe Pass. We had around 30 riders at this point, and look at this immediate acceleration from Lotte Kopecky. Immediately, Letizia Paternoster was right onto the wheel of the world champion on the Horseshoe Pass, the categorised 1 climb. Brunel tried to move herself up, the rider in the yellow and orange jersey from Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93. Diagnum was there, but there was no immediate reaction.
What's so impressive to me is that Lotte Kopecky isn't looking over her shoulder once. When she attacks, it's with intent. She came from slightly further back. She caught the Saint-Michel Mavic Aubert 93 riders who are on the front at that moment in time, slightly by surprise, but it's that explosive nature of Lotte Kopecky where she can open up that gap. This is where Anna Henderson bridged across to Lotte Kopecky and Letizia Paternoster here. But again, that's why she's world champion.
And this is what... At first, we saw Paternoster was there, and through the tree, Paternoster just was not able to follow the pace of Kopecky. For the first time, the world champion looks over her right-hand shoulder. She's already done 300, 350 metres, 400 metres perhaps, without looking over her shoulder, and then she sees Henderson there. Henderson knew this was a dangerous move.
Yeah, of course, it's Lotte Kopecky, and she's got a big kind of signal on her back with those world champion stripes, of course, the green leaders jersey here. But it's a hard position to be in for Letizia Paternoster. What do you do? Know that you've got the potential of blowing up, or try and follow when you're still in contention for the overall general classification, or of course that stage win. But I think she did the right thing there. She knew that there was a strong group behind. She almost sat up knowing that she couldn't follow in this big attack from Lotte Kopecky. But Anna Henderson, clearly feeling good here. She could follow in the wheels of Lotte Kopecky, who just kept going and going, didn't she? A couple of looks back behind the shoulder, but she just kept driving forward until that gap was established and they started to share that workload.
And Kopecky was intent. Once she knew Henderson was there, she didn't try and flick the elbow and ask for some assistance or ask for a turn from the rider in the white jersey. She was intent, knowing she could go over the top of the climb, make as much of a gap as possible to the chasers behind, a tailwind over the top of the horseshoe pass, and still Kopecky has taken the lead here.
Yeah, she is. She wanted to take maximal points. That would have definitely been a target, I'm sure, for Lotte Kopecky to keep going with that. But it just shows the form that she's in, that she felt that she was clearly riding at a very solid pace, and she wanted that gap to become established before she then looked at Anna Henderson in trying to assist.
Henderson, an excellent reaction to Lotte Kopecky, seeing that green jersey go up the road on the horseshoe pass, and in the end it was the duo who stayed away into Wrexham. 2 stages, 2 breakaways have made it to the finish line. Both have contained Lotte Kopecky. Both have been won by the world champion. Well, 3 hours and 37 minutes of racing. It's Lotte Kopecky who wins her 2nd stage of the week here at the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. She wins ahead of Henderson. Wiebes wins the bunch sprint behind for 3rd place, 20 seconds behind with Paternoster, Pfeiffer Georgie, Sarah Roy, Margot Pachenbeek, Josie Talbot, Lizzie Dignan and Aline Janssen rounding out the top 10, all at 20 seconds. And of course, Kopecky, after that stage victory, will have taken the 10 bonus seconds. Henderson will have taken the 6 bonus seconds, and 4 bonus seconds will go into the pocket of Lorena Wiebes.
Some really strong performances in there, notably by Sarah Roy from Cofidis, and also another one from Margot van Pachterbeke from the Volker Vessels team to get themselves into the top 10 on such a hard stage.
Well, we await our podium ceremony. Everyone's got prime viewing position to see our jerseys be awarded, presented, to see our stage victor Lotte Kopecky be awarded onto the stage.
I love that Welsh cycling kit with the
I
Welsh
saw
dragon
that
on the right-hand side. Very patriotic, as always, from the Welsh. Brilliant to see.
Fantastic to see, a fantastic finish in Wrexham. And everyone's enjoying themselves. There's been a great atmosphere all day, and the beauty of having a stage start in the same location as where it finishes. People can see the stage start, they can hang around, they can go for a coffee, go for lunch, maybe even nip back to work.
Double delight, isn't it?
Come back out to see the finish.
Yeah, it's great. Like you said, just 2 opportunities to be able to see the riders roll out at the start, and then, of course, see that brilliant finish that we had here in Wrexham.
Well, we're getting ourselves set to present our winners and our jersey leaders. All the riders will be making their way back to the team buses, getting some food, already preparing for stage 3, thinking about the recovery process. The Wrexham stage. A brilliant day on the Welsh roads. We leave them behind today after stage 2 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. We've had 2 fantastic days in the Welsh roads, in the Welsh countryside.
And the winner of stage 2 of the Lloyds Bank Tour.
There's Councillor Beryl Blackmore, the Mayor of Wrexham. She'll be presenting the world champion Lotte Kopecky with that photo frame of the route today. It's a world champion victory in Wrexham as Lotte Kopecky takes her 2nd of the week. Beryl Blackmore, the Mayor of Wrexham, on big duties today with cycling royalty.
Stage win for Lotte Kopecky.
Another bouquet of flowers for Lotte Kopecky. She's greeted by the fans who have waited all day to see the world champion win on their home roads.
Thanks to Councillor Beryl Blackmore, the Mayor of Wrexham, for presenting that award.
I'm a big fan of the prize. You can always remember the route in which you've won on there.
Yeah, me too. I always find it intriguing as to the prizes that are going to be given out in any given race. There's some interesting ones, aren't there, throughout the season, but that's definitely one to keep hold of.
Definitely up there with one of the best. I like it. Oh, and here is Ed Clancy, OBE. Three-time Olympic champion. Of course, a great ambassador for our sport now as well. Still working with the Great Britain cycling team in terms of helping them develop a lot of their equipment. As we see most combative rider of the day, well, there was no second guessing. Francisca Koch of Team DSM Firmenich Postenel is awarded the most combative rider of the day, as voted for by you, the public. She's presented by Ed Clancy, and of course he's the Active Travel Commissioner for South Yorkshire. He's got plenty of titles, Ed Clancy. And a big hat tip to Francisca Koch after that brave performance, the solo performance and the breakaway of the day.
On behalf of our principal sponsor, Lloyds Bank, please welcome Andrea Dolan.
Andrea Dolan comes onto the stage from our title sponsor, Lloyds Bank.
Again for the second day in a row. For Team SD Works Spray Time, your sprint leader is Lotte Kopecky.
Well, after taking another stage victory, Lotte Kopecky takes another 12 points. She extends her lead in that red sprints competition. She's presented by Andrea Dolan of Lloyds Bank with the flowers and the jersey.
For Team SD Works Spray Time, Lotte Kopecky.
This is a nice moment, and we've seen this time and time again from Kopecky.
Yeah, she's obviously spotted someone in the crowd that she wants to give the flowers to, probably a young supporter watching on. It'll be nice to see that exchange. But again, Lotte Kopecky always so thankful to give her time. We saw yesterday giving selfies to fans after the stage. A true champion.
Kopecky leads that competition 27 points ahead of Paternoster with 16 points. 11 points the advantage to the world champion, Georgie on 9 points.
Of the Mountains leaders jersey, once again for the second day running for the Great Britain National.
Well, having picked up points on the Eaton Hill, Queen of the Mountain, and of course the Horseshoe Pass, Lizzie Dignan extends her lead in the blue Queen of the Mountains jersey. She's presented by Nigel Williams. Another day in the Queen of the Mountains competition for Lizzie Dignan. A competition that wasn't one that they'd earmarked as a Great Britain national team as an aim and a goal. It's certainly becoming one.
Yeah, it is indeed. She said, didn't she, yesterday, that it definitely wasn't a goal of the team, but she found herself in the perfect position, so why not give it a go? And now she leads. I'm sure she'll be trying to take that overall in the last 2 days of this Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women.
She continues to impress. Aline Janssen continues to lead the best young rider jersey, that white jersey. She'll be presented by British Cycling Board member Richard Lodge. Aline Janssen has a good advantage over Flora Perkins in that competition now, 3 minutes and 57 seconds. And she's just soaking it all up. You can see what it means to her to be on the podium here.
Yeah, and it's a category that we look out for, don't we, as our superstars to watch in the future. We've seen some great riders come through the ranks, taking that generally white jersey, young riders competition, and it will give her a lot of confidence, and it's a great focus to have for the remainder of this tour.
We await the big presentation 2 stage victories to her name. Professional victory number 41 for the world champion Lotte Kopecky. Chris Strange onto the podium for Lloyds Bank, our title sponsor of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. And Lotte Kopecky, having taken more time and more bonus seconds, she extends her advantage and she keeps green on her shoulders.
Stage 3 tomorrow. Lotte Kopecky of Team SD Works Pro Time, your women's tour race leader.
3 trips to the podium for Lotte Kopecky. We'll see her in green tomorrow for stage 3.
Strange for making that presentation to all our award presenters. That concludes our presentation ceremony. Now back to Jess Cox in the commentary.
Danny Rowe, stage 2, certainly delivered the action. It was 2 from 2 from Kopecky, but it didn't come easy to her.
No, it didn't, and it was a very back-ended stage, wasn't it? We saw that great move from Francie Koch and Team DSM Firmenich post-NL, who were trying to set things up for our British champion, Pfeiffer Georgie, who finished strongly on today's stage, but it was horseshoe pass that really did all the damage. SD Works Pro Time clearly had that in their sights. They set it up with Elena Cecchini and Christine Margeroux specifically, who set the speed for that blistering attack that we saw from our world champion, setting up that duo that came to the finish in herself and Anna Henderson.
Well, she spent a day in the blue leaders jersey of the Queen of the Mountains competition. She's extended her lead over Heidi Franz once again after stage 2. Let's hear the thoughts of Lizzie Deignan of the Great Britain national team.
Lizzie, yesterday you said you took the opportunity to go for blue. Today you really defended it. Can you tell us a bit about your time out on the road for that?
Yeah, we knew there'd be 2 pretty difficult climbs today, and I knew that I would have a good shot at defending the jersey, and I thought, well, I've got it now and let's try and keep it.
And what can you tell us about the plan for the next 2 stages? Because you're currently sat with Anna in 2nd on GC, and you're actually in 5th as well, so a lot to play for.
Yeah, we've still got a lot to play for. The team's riding really well together, really strong. Anna did a phenomenal ride today, so I think we'll try and defend that 2nd place.
How closely have you had a look at the profile for tomorrow and how different it might be?
I think tomorrow should be a sprint, and I would expect that now that Lotte is comfortably in the lead, that they'll probably go for Wiebers in the sprint. I mean, she's the fastest in the world, and it'll be up to the rest of us to try and upset that plan, I guess.
Lizzie, good luck tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Well, we've had 2 breakaway days. They've both been won by Lotte Kopecky. Tomorrow, Danny Rowe, as we head over the border and into England, starting and finishing in Warrington, it looks more for the sprinters, but we've already seen anything can happen here on these stages. The way that the route has been designed by Rod Ellingworth and Andy Hawes, they've done a fantastic job in putting together dynamic racing roads.
Yeah, and we've got 2 short, shallow climbs that come tomorrow, another intermediate sprint point and that flat finish. And like Lizzie Deignan alluded to there's going to be a lot of teams trying to upset the apple cart of SD Works Pro Time, who I'm sure will be riding with the intent to launch Lorena Wiebes into another stage victory, the fastest woman on 2 wheels, arguably at this stage of 2024.
It's certainly going to be an interesting one into the Cheshire Lanes and through many roads you and I know very, very well from training roads, but also the fact that there will be opportunities to try and get away, to try and force a breakaway. And let's not forget that along the way we've also got Queen of the Mountains points available. We've also got our intermediate sprint that comes at Mere. The Category 3 climb we've got is on Shrigley Road. We also go over Peck's Hill, which don't underestimate Peck's Hill because it might be a Category 3 climb, but it's incredibly steep.
Yeah, and also we're getting into stage 3 now, so the riders are going to be holding that accumulative fatigue. That's going to be setting in, so it does generally change the dynamic of racing. We've got some bigger time gaps now for the riders, so there's going to be a lot of intent now for the riders to form that breakaway and upset the sprint.
Yes, the base of the Shrigley Road climb, which is steeper and of course will all make for a great stage. Well, let's hear from our stage winner today, Lotte Kopecky.
2 out of 2 now. How does that feel?
Yeah, good. No, yesterday was really close and different. Today, yeah, it was nice to be in the break with Anna and to finish it off in the sprint.
And Lorena took third. Another good day for the team.
Yeah, exactly. Team Esberg's throw time is doing a really good job here.
And can you just briefly tell us a little bit about the communication with you and Anna in that closing kilometre? Because you did have the group behind, but she wasn't going to want to come through.
No, I kind of expected it already, but I did the reckon of the final this morning, so I knew what was coming, and it was not a disadvantage to start from the lead. So I didn't mind.
Congratulations! Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lotte Kopecky makes it 2 from 2. She wins ahead of Anna Henderson, Letizia Paternoster, Pfeiffer Georgie, Dignan, Aline Janssen, Victoire Gilman, Christine Majeres, Ruby Roseman Gannon and Lorena Wiebes. This is what the general classification looks like after 2 stages. It's all still to play for, particularly in the top 7, 8 riders here, Danny.
Yeah, the top 8 riders within 43 seconds of our winner, Kopecky. So it's still very much an open race.
Another terrific stage on the roads of Wales. Tomorrow we head over the border and into England for stage 3 of the Lloyds Bank Tour of Britain Women. It's going to be a brilliant stage 1 for the sprinters. It'll be Charlotte Cool who will be wanting to try and get her arms aloft, as will Lorena Wiebes and Letizia Paternoster, amongst others too. Thanks for watching and joining us for stage 2 here. Alongside me was Danny Rowe. Danny, thanks for your insights throughout today's stage. It was certainly an exciting one. 2 stage wins for Kopecky, who denied Henderson. Thanks for joining myself, Hannah Walker. We'll see you tomorrow for stage 3.